here with Porter Larson behind the glass. Going to be talking sports with you from 2 to 6 today on this lovely Friday. I'm sure you know, as a listener of this program, but tomorrow it will be 2 weeks until Utah kicks off its football season against UCLA. Looking forward to that. Obviously, we've got football across the state as well, starting, and this is the fun time of the year, right? Like, this is what you probably have been waiting for all summer long, to watch football and watch sports again. This is what we've been missing locally. I'm Andy Larson, the Utah Jazz beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. Also been covering a little bit of Utes as well. Porter's been seeing me at Utes practice, Utes train, and it's a fall camp, and it's been fun to kind of show my face and talk to Kyle Whittingham, talk to some of the players over the course of this fall. We've got a good show for you guys today. We've got Kevin Reynolds, the BYU Cougars beat writer from the Salt Lake Tribune, joining us next segment at 2:30. We're going to be talking not a whole lot of Cougars, but a lot of Big 12 and a lot of what's going on with Utah as well. He's knowledgeable, obviously, about both programs. Excited to have Kevin on. We've got Easton Jensen on at 3:30. Easton Folster on at 3 o'clock. He is from the Utah Golf Association. Going to be talking about the big golf tournaments that are going on this weekend. 3:30, we've got Sports Court with Handy and Handy. And then 4 o'clock, Trevor Riley joins us. Looking forward. He's always a great personality to talk to, a great personality to have on Utah Sports Radio. Happy to have him joining us at the 4 o'clock hour. So a really solid show for you guys. But Porter, let's get started with the show by talking a little bit of Utah football. I had an article out a couple of weeks ago and have been kind of looking into it more recently, and just what to expect from this Utah offense. It was really Sean O'Connell, the host of the previous show, who brought this kind of question up to me. But I love it so much because it does kind of encapsulate the big question about Utah football next year, which is how much better will the offense be? The offense can't be a lot worse than last year, but can it be a touchdown better per game? Can it be more than a touchdown better? I think they're kind of real interesting questions, and you start to get into obviously the strength of the quarterback position, where the running back and room is, and where the wide receiver room is. It's a really interesting place to be right now watching Utah football. I'm curious, you've been at camp over this week. What have you seen? What have you learned about how you were looking at how the offense is going to be?
Yeah, and Andy, it's an important question because this is a team that really, if you do get a touchdown better, if you get 8, 9, 10 points better on the offensive production side, you could change your win-loss, outlook dramatically. So it's a situation where you very much need to, of course, improve a little bit. And of course, for Utah, I do believe this is a team that is somewhat, ready to take a step. It's an offense that is in the install. It is still very much new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback. But what I've seen in camp, I like what I've seen from Devin Dampier. He's not a running back playing quarterback. He is a quarterback. I've seen him make some throws that running backs clearly do not make, right? That being said, he has some traits, has some intangibles that really make him a different kind of dual threat than Utah has maybe had recently, right?
He's not Nate Johnson, right? And Nate Johnson has come back and may play a role for the Utes.
He's not Cam Rising either in a different way.
Right. And I think that's important to note. And, look, going to the Big 12, you're not going to see necessarily maybe the same production that you saw from Devin Dampier in New Mexico last year. But that being said, he also has another year under his belt. And you have, he's obviously got the familiarity with Jason Beck's system, right? Like, I think there's some really good signs. And frankly, like, it's just so hard to be, Utah's quarterback situation was just so dreadful last year. I mean, I've got the number, like, Luke Batari was the 213th best quarterback in college football last year by Pro Football Focus's grading, right? That's a real bad. You get down to Brandon Rose, 278. You get down to Isaac Wilson, number 300 in the country, right? Like, Devin Dampier's in the top 50. And so even if he is just adequate, yeah, you're talking about probably a touchdown per game. And then, yes, that gets you to 9. And the Utes, despite how bad and how frustrating the offense was last year, they still lost these games by only one score.
That's the big point.
They would go from 5-7 last year to either 9-2 or maybe 10-2, right? Like they've lost the one game by 8 points, and so we'll see, what happens in an overtime situation, overtime coin flip. But like all of a sudden, we're talking about how good Utah football has been consistently for years, rather than the narrative of this offseason.
Yeah, this is a defense, Andy, that kept this team in games even last season when there was no production from the offense, right? When your offense is going out and routinely just 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, man, it's really hard as a defense to continue to keep your team in games. And we saw that over and over again last season. If this defense can take a step, now you replace Keanu Tanavasa, you have to replace some guys on the outside.
For sure.
There are some new faces on the defense, but when you look at the roster in totality, I kind of give Morgan Scalley and Kyle Whittingham the benefit of the doubt that this will be, I'm not going to say it's a top 10 defense. It will be a top 30 defense. I will put a lot of stock into that, right?
Yeah.
And if it is, then that offense really just needs to improve, like we said, measurably, but not dramatically. And this is a team that can contend for a Big 12 championship, I think. I don't think that's crazy to think. Now, a lot of context is that the Big 12 is wide open, but I do think that's a realistic place.
Big 12 is wide open, but I think the schedule works out friendly for the Utes because of that. And then, I think it's possible the defense does take a step back in kind of talent and skill a little bit, but ultimately just not being on the field as often.
Right.
And look, I mean, we all know, like, when you lose 4 or 5 games in a row, like, that wears on you. And I think we saw that at the end of the season last year, where football is obviously such a sport that needs such focus and dedication and passion and effort on every down. And you have the quarterbacks that the Utes had at the other side of the ball, and you just got to feel like you're kind of killing yourself, but for nothing. And that's been tough. So, look, I think kind of no matter what here, so long as Devin Dampier stays healthy, which is, it's a significant concern for any quarterback.
Now, just to add on to that, watching him, at least, while he does run a lot, you're going to see him run a lot. I've seen him be really good at, and this is somewhat on New Mexico tape, but somewhat seeing a little bit at camp and scrimmages. This is a guy who understands that he has to stay healthy. He understands that he's 5'11" and not that big, right? He's going to get out of the way. He's going to slide. He's going to get out of bounds. And the coaching staff is very much emphasizing that as we approach kickoff.
Yeah, I think they're like the only way that this to me goes really poorly is if Devin Dampier gets hurt. Game 1, game
kind
2.
of like this last couple of years. It'll look similar to what we've seen. Honestly,
I think it could still be disappointing. A 6-7, even a win season, maybe even an 8-win season would be a little bit disappointing. If Devin Dampier doesn't translate quite as well, or if the interceptions become a concern, and then he has kind of the playmaking taken out of the offense, and then all of a sudden you're relying on a transfer running back room, transfer wide receiver room, and it's just still hard to get the offense going because you're really just trying to milk the clock a little bit. To be fair, we've seen that from Utah football's offense when Kyle Whittingham becomes uncomfortable with quarterbacks passing the ball. They become very, very conservative, and it is hard to score that way in 2025.
And as you said, the Utes and Kyle have shown a willingness to, if we're not fully confident with our quarterback, we are more than comfortable, Wyoming, playing you to a 3-0, basically draw. We are more than comfortable making this a final score of 13-10, if that, right? We might see that if you see Dampier miss some time. That's the other part, Andy. I don't have much concern of him missing significant time. That can always happen, freak accident. You never really include that in your prognostication. However, the amount of times that quarterbacks play an entire season without missing snaps, that's very small. That almost never happens. So even if we do, let's say, assume Devin Dampier plays every game. Maybe he plays 10, 11 games. There's going to be a time during the course of the college football season where Utah needs someone not named Devin Dampier to play a little quarterback. I can almost guarantee you that will surface at some point in October, in November.
Yeah, and
that's a conversation too.
Agreed, and then it comes down to, frankly, is Isaac Wilson better than he was last year? You certainly hope so with a year of development and growth and maybe even introspection. I thought,
and put in a better position too. Not to discount your point. He was not ready for the moment
for sure.
But also, you throw a freshman out there. You don't, as a coaching staff, you don't want to and didn't want to put Isaac Wilson in that situation. We saw how it turned out.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought it was really Jason Patacchio, our guy at the Salt Lake Tribune, the Utes beat writer there, talked to Isaac for a great story he put out this week. And I thought it was really interesting to kind of hear how he viewed last season. And I think I give him a lot of credit for how he came off in this article. Comes off really mature, comes off understanding where he is in kind of the pecking order, and also ready to be a solid backup. And it's not even clear that he will be the number 2 right now, right? Like this is a competition. But
yeah, I think they're still very much, and they probably will continue to, even if Kyle and Jason Beck know who number 2 is. I'm going to assume that going into week 1 and throughout the year, they're going to keep pressure on those 2 guys just to make sure they're ready for the moment regardless.
We're going to see an or on that depth chart.
Yes.
Week 1.
Yes. It will be Devin Dampier at 1, and then you're going to see an or probably at 2 and 3. I would concur.
Yeah. That being said, you hope that he's become better and watched film, understands what happened last year. And I think, again, in this article, he's shown that. And then, you do have like a Nate Johnson option if you want to get crazy. I'm not sure that you really want to start him, obviously, but I think
you've seen it already in emergency situations work, though.
It's a good point. And again, like
you've seen it beat a Big 12 opponent in a situation. Now, it wasn't pretty. Wasn't pretty in Waco, but it happened.
Maybe you just have some creativity and offensive weapons that Nate Johnson provides. Like, I think it's an interesting possibility, right? Like, but the Utes fastball is so much better, right? Like the Utes are throwing 95-mile-an-hour fastballs this year on offense rather than 80-mile-an-hour fastballs that are just getting hit on the offensive end. And you're just, there's just the quarterback situation is just so drastically different.
Yeah. I think you look at, and maybe it takes some time, right? I don't think you necessarily look at UCLA in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl as a marker for, thinking that Jason Beck and this offense are going to be out running on all cylinders. Give them a minute, right? That may be a game that you kind of have to grind out week 1, and that's fine. But if we're into October, November, and this offense is still sputtering, then yeah, there's different conversations. But I agree with you. This team has more pitches to throw. Last year, they had a changeup.
It's hard to win with only a changeup. And look, I feel better about that process because Dampier and Beck work together, right? Like,
yep.
If that acclimation process makes me feel a lot better about week 1 than if they had never seen each other in their lives.
If you're working with a new play caller and a new quarterback with that play caller under a coach in Kyle Whittingham who is historically like a little prickly with a play caller, yeah, that isn't an ideal situation. Jason Beck has history with a lot of these guys on staff. Kyle is familiar with him. There is a good understanding and a good feel of, listen, we're going to let this guy do what he did and what he's known to do, because this was a top 5 offense in college football last year, right? Depending on which metrics you look at. And he did that in New Mexico. You give him some weapons, you give him some resources, and you give him, my thing, the most important, a little bit of time. You have non-conference to play with. You'd like to be 3-0, but again, give it some time, allow this offense to kind of come into its own, and I think you're going to see something a lot more exciting and a lot more efficient and productive than you saw last year.
Yeah, and you certainly hope so, and I think it says a lot, the trust that Jason Beck's been given as Utah's offensive coordinator.
Yep.
We got to take a break, but on the other side, we'll have Kevin Reynolds from the Salt Lake Tribune joining us. This is The Drive with Spencer Checketts on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Welcome back into the Drive with Spence Checketts. I am Andy Larson. That is one of the best songs of all time, House of the Rising Sun.
I would contend maybe the best.
I actually don't hate that take. It is an absolute banger. No doubt about it. Porter Larson there behind the glass helping out with the show today. But let's go ahead and get Kevin Reynolds on. He is the BYU beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. The place I work as well. We actually have desks right next to each other now in our new offices on Market Street.
We're gonna tease the Trib a lot
great
today.
time. Yeah, I mean, look.
Is there any deals?
I'm biased as all get out.
You guys are going into the busy section of hoops, football, all the above.
Yep. You'll be wanting to read the Salt Lake Tribune sports coverage.
I think so.
Kevin, man, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Did you like that promo there? Was it good?
I did like it. I mean, you left me for a week to go to Ireland, so I didn't have a desk mate. But now that I'm back, it is nice. It is nice to have somebody there.
I'm sorry I left you alone there. I'm sure you didn't hate having more space, but anyway, so it goes. I want to talk first with you about BYU's quarterback situation because there has been a lot of talk, like in really the last couple of hours, about potentially like Bear Bachmeier being the guy from one report. Are you hearing kind of the same thing, or like, from your point of view, is it still kind of an open quarterback battle?
Yeah, no, I think it's been trending this way for probably the last week or so, that BYU is leaning towards giving Bear Bachmeier this job. And to be honest, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we were talking about this in the office the other day of if you're down to a choice between McKay Hillstead, which, Utah State transfer, a lot of people in Utah know, won a state title here, and Bear Bachmeier, I think you lean to the guy who is 6'2" and 225 pounds and a freshman, and a guy theoretically who you can see as a starter on a winning BYU football team. Maybe not this year, but if you get a year under his belt and he develops in this offense, learns the offense a little bit more, and has a lot of game experience, then maybe next year that works. And I think the other part of this conversation that I think you can't really look at BYU's quarterback situation without is Ryder Lyons, 5-star, one of the most highly rated recruited guys that BYU's had at the quarterback position. Definitely in Kalani Sitake's era, but just looking back, I mean, he's up there in terms of any era. He comes in 2027 after getting back from a mission. And do you really want to have Ryder Lyons in the building and not know at all what you have in Bear Bachmeier? Because I don't think Bear Bachmeier is necessarily a normal just BYU prospect, because if Ryder Lyons didn't exist, I think you'd be looking at Bear Bachmeier, a 4-star guy who had offers from Alabama, Georgia, a lot of other places, as just a guy you want to punt on and just say, yeah, they'll move on to Ryder Lyons. Like, I think BYU should give him a legitimate chance, should see what they have in him. And I think this is the right move for the now, but also for the future.
We were talking last segment about how Isaac Wilson really struggled last year, right? And as a freshman quarterback in the Big 12, it is hard, right? Like, I think you can criticize the performance, but also there's just a recognition that having a player that young start at that position in one of the best football conferences in the nation is difficult. What do you anticipate out of Bear Bachmeier this year then?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think there's going to be a lot of points where there's growing pains and there's struggles for Bear Bachmeier. You look at all the good defensive coordinators in the Big 12. Jay Hill, you look at Morgan Scalley, two people that we know well in this state. When they go up against freshman quarterbacks, it tends to be an advantage for the defense. I think it's just, and I don't think it's necessarily even just the speed of the game or anything like that. I also think it's a matter of knowledge of the offense. You're going to look at, I think Isaac Wilson last year was a good example, and we'll see what happens with Bear Bachmeier, but just being able to audible out of plays and check out to a run play, like things like that, little things like that even Jake Retzlaff, if he was still on BYU, he was just really commanding that going into his third year in the program. And it's not like, he was going to have enough autonomy this year to be able to do a lot of those things. And so it takes time. So it's not even just the defense. It's not even just the athletic component and getting your body ready and then also understanding the offense. It's also about the little nuances of just being able to move the ball so you're not in 3rd and 18 all the time. And I think we've seen that with first-year quarterbacks, regardless of whether they're a freshman or a senior. you even look at BYU 2023, Keaton Slovis, a guy who had been at Pitt, had been at USC, had success, but just the knowledge of the offense took a little bit of time, and there was a lot of other factors there. But I do think he struggled a little bit too. So I think there's going to be some growing pains for sure starting a freshman.
Yeah,
that's where they go.
I'm gonna pull back the curtain a little bit too on what we talk about at the office, and this is just a fun topic too. If Isaac Wilson had transferred to BYU, is he their starting quarterback, or is it Bear Bachmeier?
I still think it's Bear Bachmeier, and a couple of reasons for that. I think Isaac Wilson last year did a lot of things that, and again, it's really tough, to just say, hey, first year, and you didn't expect to play. You kind of came to Utah not expecting to play because of Cam Rising. It's tough to just say that's who they are, and I think Isaac Wilson has the potential maybe to grow into something. But again, last year, the tape he put on, taking care of the football, things like that just weren't really there. So, and for Aaron Roderick, BYU's offensive coordinator, and honestly, frankly, any offense, those are things that you need to do. So I think no matter where he ended up, I think it was going to be one of those things of, hey, learn the offense, get a little bit of an understanding of college football a little bit more, and then maybe we'll see. So him starting anywhere, I think this year was going to be, at least at the Power 4 level, I don't know if that was going to be realistic. But the second part of it is, Isaac Wilson theoretically would be starting at the same place Bear Bachmeier was this year, even if he transferred, because it's not like he would have experience in the Aaron Roderick system either. And then just the other part is again, if they're close and you feel like they're pretty close, which I'd imagine they would be because of how well Bear Bachmeier has played since he's been on campus, do you go with Isaac Wilson or do you go with Bear Bachmeier just because of the traits? Isaac Wilson is a little bit undersized as well. So, another huge upside to Bear Bachmeier is he's 225 pounds and he can run and he can throw. And so if all else fails, at least he's got that and kind of bet on the talent.
Kev, if say we get to mid-October and both Utah and BYU, both with, question marks at the quarterback situation as of today, at least, of course, with Devin Dampier, we know he's going to be the starter, but we've never seen him play at the University of Utah. If we get to mid-October and let's say both of these schools have, slightly above average quarterback production through about a month and a half of football, and BYU and Utah are facing off on October 18th, what does this rivalry game look like if both of these teams have what I would say, quarterback play that's par or a little bit better?
Yeah, I think last year, I think actually these two programs have actually almost flipped a little bit versus what they were last year. Because last year, I think Utah was a great defense, and they just didn't have any offensive production, and that kind of compounded, and they have the worst season that Kyle Whittingham has had in over a decade. And so, and I think last year at the same time, and then I feel like that's where BYU is almost right now, with they have a good defense this year, and the offense has a lot of question marks. So I think because of that, I do think with the early part of BYU's schedule and kind of Utah's schedule, you could kind of sit there and say that game will be meaningful. But there's just I just feel like there's too many questions on both sides right now, particularly BYU's offense and honestly where Utah's defense a little bit, ironically, that I just don't know how both teams are going to look. And I think we're going to need to see it to the first month because BYU has so many questions at the skill position, running back, quarterback. I think even wide receiver, guys like JoJo Phillips and other playmakers we've seen, what do they actually look like as starters? And then for Utah, I think it's how do you replace Cam Calhoun? How do you replace Keanu Tanavasa, who I think a lot of people would argue were Morgan Scalley's two best players a year ago on defense that were returning. So, I think it's really hard, to predict right now what that game's going to look like and who's going to be healthy for it too.
With Utah and BYU, we know college football is changing. We know that this is nearly a professional sport at this point. Where do these two teams rank in terms of the whole ecosystem of the Big 12 in terms of being able to get prospects, spend money, and attract talent in the modern era?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to put a numerical value on where BYU sits and where Utah sits compared to Baylor, or, you go down the list of a random Big 12 school. But I mean, I just think, look at the track record of where the recruiting rankings have been, particularly the last couple of years. And like, you've seen BYU really start to increase their recruiting year over year, to the point where this year, I think this is the best recruiting class that Kalani Sitake has had in a long time, depending on where you look, top 25 class. And then, so I think there are resources continuous. There's definitely resources at BYU, and they're using them in football. I mean, basketball is probably a better example of this, but there's a lot of teams that have gone all in the Big 12. You look at Texas Tech. I mean, obviously they've been very public in going all in. And I also, just talking to people around the Big 12, I do think there's going to be some variation. Like, this is not the SEC. This is not the Big 10, where the top people in the conference, the top teams in the conference. Your Ohio States, your Michigans, your USCs. You go down the list, Alabama, Georgia, where year in and year out, there's going to be a commitment. Like, the Big 12 has different levels of resources, and there's a lot of variation between teams 1 and 16. Like, UCF and Texas Tech are very, very different programs in terms of their donor base. Houston is another example of very different from what BYU is. So it might be one of those things, just talking to people around the league, of it might be pick your spots, on a year where you have a ton of freshmen and you're building, maybe you don't go all in on having the most expensive roster there is. But when those guys, like at Iowa State, are juniors and seniors, and you have Rocco Becht, and you have a lot of talent, maybe you do splurge and go, $5 million extra on your roster to go get a guy who, is an experienced player elsewhere. So I don't know if the Big 12 will have clear powers and clear people who spend the most every single year over year, and just have a $30 million roster, or a $20 million roster so consistently, just because I don't know if those resources exist in this league. And I also think that's part of the problem in the Big 12 sometimes with, the reputation of the league, just because there are so many times we're talking about Arizona State one year and BYU one year versus Iowa State the next year. And to be, I think, respected, and sometimes at the end of the year, just to get that name recognition of a team, or the benefit of doubt of a team, sometimes you do need consistent powers. And Brett Yormark, I think, realizes that, and I think he's hoping one team emerges. But I don't know, from an NIL standpoint, year over year, at least to this point, we're just going to see one team, Utah, BYU, you name the team, just being consistently spending the most money on a football roster, at least.
Kevin, we talked about this exact thing in the Pac-12 for almost a decade, right? That there was kind of not really a flag bearer, because USC was down for a while. Oregon was kind of down. UCLA was, not playing football really for like a decade. So there was a kind of an onus on the schools, and Utah tried to take that flag and run with it. They won 2 conference championships, but it always felt like if Utah's your flag bearer, you're looking at kind of like a mid-major school that's punching above their weight. In the Big 12, this is clearly a program or a conference that doesn't have an Alabama. It doesn't have a Michigan. Who do you think, and maybe it's Texas Tech with the money and the way they've started, and I don't want to say history because they really haven't won many football games. Is there a program that can combine the NIL space with what I think is an aura in college football, to be that flag bearer, to be a true number one, to go toe-to-toe with Alabama, to go toe-to-toe, year in and year out with a Georgia? Or are we looking at a situation where, you just play second fiddle the best you can, and your top dogs are probably looking at a way to get into the Big Ten, to get into the SEC, and that's where your reality lies?
Yeah, well, I think it's tough because, at least at this point, I don't know if that team exists for the Big 12, where you're just going to see them emerge. I mean, you look at the recruiting rankings prior to revenue share and NIL. I think you look at TCU as an example, and that they have a lot of built-in advantages in terms of recruiting, because they're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. They're in Texas. They have a good amount of resources, and so you think theoretically they can combine location and recruiting and resources, and maybe they could take the mantle. And I think for a long time it was can UCF and Florida maybe do that, but had the resources really matched? so far it's been a struggle for them in the Big 12. At least, I mean, I'm just talking from a football perspective because I think basketball the answer is a little bit different. But so at this point, I don't know if there is that. I mean, Utah's also recruited well for a long time too. I mean, prior to the last couple of years, like you look back at what they were in the Pac-12, like it was a very consistent team. And if you dropped what Utah was doing in the Pac-12 recruiting wise to the Big 12, as with pretending all 16 teams were in the Big 12, like Utah would be near the top of that list along with TCU. So, and BYU is now kind of coming up as well, but they were an independent for so long, so that was kind of tough to compare. So at this point, I still don't see a team that's so clearly like, yes, that's going to be the team that emerges. Like even Texas Tech right now, they're spending a lot. Will they spend a lot still in 5 years if they don't have success with this? I don't know. I think it's really hard to predict where that goes with a conference, at least from the football side, that just doesn't have that traditional power right now.
Well, and then if we get into a world where there's another round of conference realignment, and I don't think it's been really much of a secret that the Utes would prefer to be in the Big Ten, like it is then, kind of incumbent and really important for the Utes to show that they are among the best, if not the best team in the Big 12 for these next few years to come, if they do want to be kind of on top in that next realignment era. And obviously the playoff setup depends, if there are two guaranteed slots for the Big 10 versus one for the Big 12 or whatever ends up coming up out of the pipeline out of the NCAA, like these next couple of years, I do think are extremely important for setting up Utah as part of either the haves or the have-nots, and frankly for BYU as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, and also like the other question is like, I mean, truly from a really 30,000 foot point of view is like, yeah, does the Big 12, like, do the Big 12 and SEC exist as presently constructed, in the next, by the time that happens? Or is it just 70 teams playing, at a, I don't know what they would call it, or is it just 70 teams playing in a kind of a different league, and then now it's not just 136 teams or whatever it is right now, and maybe it's just 70 that opt all into rev share and, are paying players and paying, spending at a certain level. Because eventually, like, I do see a world where it's just like the Mountain West or, name the Conference USA or, the American now, right? Like all the things that all these conferences, like, are they even playing the same sport as the SEC or the Big 10 or like the Big 12's not really been on that level, but like, or just does it go to 70 teams and, the Big 12 teams are fighting to be a part of the haves and not the have-nots. I don't really know how it looks by that time. Because so much changes every day. I mean, they're making up new rules every day too.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. It's like really hard to predict. Like eligibility, you never know. Like people are getting 7 years. You really never know.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, Kevin. We got to run, but let the people know what you're working on and what they can expect from your coverage in the Salt Lake Tribune.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, we're working on Bear Bachmeier stuff, and we'll definitely have a lot more stuff on BYU's quarterback situation coming up, and as we get closer to the opener. And yeah, I mean, quarterbacks is what people care about, so I think that's what we'll be spending a lot of time on.
Yeah, I think that's fair for Jason. That's fair for you, and I think all of us at the Salt Lake Tribune, we like talking about what the people care about, and yes, frequently that is the quarterback situation. Thanks again, Kevin, for joining us. Good talking to you as always.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. All right.
That was Kevin Reynolds, a BYU beat writer at the Salt Lake Tribune, talking both Utah and BYU, and obviously the Big 12 as well. Now a message from IFA Country Stores. It's time to start thinking football, and we're only a few weeks away, actually just 2 weeks and 1 day away from the best time of the year. Now's the time to prep your field. Make sure you're using IFA's Step 3 for the weeks ahead when the weather is still hot. But as the dog days of summer give way to fall, it's time to start thinking about Step 4, our fall and winter lawn fertilizer. Either way, you can find out more by visiting IFA and IFA.coop. Let's go ahead and take a break. On the other side, we've got Easton Folster talking from the Utah Golf Association, talking golf and more from around the world of sports. This is The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 792.1 FM, proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. All right, welcome back into the Drive with Spence Checketts. I'm Andy Larson filling in for Spence. We got Porter Larson here as well. We're excited to talk to Easton at 3 o'clock about the golf world. He's the executive director of the Utah Golf Association. But before we get to him, just wanted to kind of recap what we've been talking about the last hour with Utah football. We also will have Trevor Riley at 4 o'clock joining us. More football talk as we are just 15 days away from opening day against UCLA. What are you looking forward to most in this next couple of hours of interviews in terms of talking Utah football and the sports world?
Trevor Riley, to me, Andy, is one of the most entertaining people I've come across in this business. Whether it's interviewing him for sure, but just the fact that you have no idea. Like, for instance, last time we booked him 4 o'clock. Well, Trevor sent me a picture message at like 3:59 that day of him with a car on its side on the freeway.
Oh, geez.
He was playing Batman, right? The fallout from Colorado, how all that ended. His time at Jackson State. His time with Dion. The guy has a Super Bowl ring that he left at the office the other day. Just very laissez-faire about it. He's genuinely one of the more interesting people in the Utah football sphere, but he's also one of the most insightful and smartest when it comes to football. So a lot of different ways you can go. Probably a couple different ways we'll go with Trevor Riley, but all of them will provide you with stuff you probably didn't know before, or stuff that will definitely entertain you.
Right. I mean, certainly the man has jobs that I will not ever get, right? As never be the special teams coordinator at Colorado, right?
No?
Like, it just isn't looking good for me in terms of my career, right? So, looking forward to that conversation as well. Anything else that we need to talk about? Social media, right? And the app.
Yeah. Head over to ESPN 700 on the App Store. Download the mobile app. Listen to us live. Leave your feedback there if you want. We got the open mic on the app. Of course, YouTube Live. You can see Andy and I on your screens as we speak. You okay with that, Andy?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
I dressed up today in my finest black T-shirt.
We both wore black T-shirts today, so we're really spiffing up for the YouTube stream. ESPN700sports.com or wherever you happen to podcast.
Love it. Let's go ahead and take a break. Before we talk to Easton, looking forward. Easton Folster is the executive director of Utah Golf Association. We'll talk to him about the BMW Championship and a relative of a Utah radio personality winning a Utah golf tournament. We'll talk about that next here on ESPN 700. Welcome back into The Drive with Spence Checketts. I am Andy Larson filling in for Spence. Porter Larson with me as well. We have done a variety of musical segments, intros to this. We got Tribe Called Quest there. I like the variety as always. Yeah.
I'm if I were a DJ, you'd not be able to like find a trend there. It'd be all over the place.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm glad about that. To be clear.
I think that's good. We've got Easton Folster from Utah, the Utah Golf Association, coming up here. I do want to say this segment is sponsored by Uinta Golf. At Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf, the new Callaway X forged and maxed irons have arrived. Come in and get custom fit today at Uinta Golf and uintagolf.com. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and talk to Easton. And I don't know Easton, but I'm excited to talk to him. And frankly, my first question to you, Easton, first of all, is how are you? I have to be kind.
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? I want to know, what is it like? What is the day-to-day life of the executive director of the Utah Golf Association like? What is it? Tell us about. It sounds like a very cool job.
You know, it is a cool job. I'm fortunate to have it. And, you know, that question, it'll greatly depend on the month that you ask me. If you ask me during the summertime, I'm likely on a golf course somewhere, running an event, helping staff do different things. We're all over the state of Utah during those summer months. Now, if you ask me in the wintertime, we're probably preparing for the next summer, but it's a little bit more of office work, a little more boring. But it's a good mix. It is a great job, and I agree. I'm lucky to have it.
Tell us. I kind of looking at the Utah Golf Association page as a prep for the interview, and we just had the Mary Lou Baker Open wrap up last weekend, and then I looked down the list and saw that the Utah Women's State Amateur Champion is David Locke's daughter, which I had no idea. I mean, I knew she was a terrific golfer, but I didn't know she had actually won the Utah Women's State Amateur tournament. Like it's an incredible accomplishment. Tell us kind of what's happened within the Utah Golf Association in the last couple of months, and kind of what you're looking forward to most coming up in the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's been a crazy summer. We're right in the middle of it with crowning champions. You've mentioned a few. You know, our state amateur first being held at Logan just there in July. Kind of kicked off our championship season with our state amateur series. Bowen Moss, who's a commit to go play at Arizona State next season, winning our state amateur at Logan. And then, as you mentioned, Arden Lockheim winning our women's state amateur here just a few weeks ago up at Wasatch. And then actually today I'm at the Utah Open at Riverside Country Club. Now, that is not an event that the UGA runs, but I'm here just to support our section PGA. They do a great job. It's a fantastic event. So right now, that's certainly the biggest, golf news, golf event that's going on in the state is the Utah Open. And there's some low scores out there right now. But we're right in the thick of it in Utah golf. We've got about another month or two of our season, and then we'll kind of go into hibernation for a few months.
I'm curious, as we look around the golf world, obviously we've got the BMW Championship in progress, second round today. We've got Robert McIntyre, who's just one of the best young golfers in the sport right now. 14 under. I mean, he shot a 62 in round one, 64 today. But we have Scotty Scheffler coming up now, in solo second place, 9 under, has played really well through 14 so far. Not clear. It looks like both of those guys have about equal odds to win right now by the bookmakers. Have you been able to watch any of this BMW Championship so far? And if so, what have you made of it?
Yeah, I'm going to be locking in this weekend into it for sure. That's going to be a fun one to watch, especially as, this is the so-called playoffs of golf, and everyone's trying to kind of position themselves to make the cut or to get inside the FedEx rankings inside the top 50 so that they can play next week in the Tour Championship. So a lot of jockeying that's going to get done. People are just trying to make it into that event. That's a huge money event. So that'll be a lot of fun to watch. I haven't been able to tune in here in these last couple of days, but I've been watching the leaderboard as you stated, and certainly not a surprise to see Scotty Scheffler at the top of another leaderboard. That almost feels like it's a mainstay, week by week. And so he's a great watch, and he's just amazing for the sport. So easy to root for. Certainly one of my favorites, and we'll be cheering for him this weekend when I get to tune in, and then of course at the Tour Championship next weekend.
Easton, obviously you mentioned Scotty Scheffler there. It seems like pretty much just muscle memory for him at this point, right? He's just going through reps out there, and in doing so, it's funny. Maybe it's his demeanor, maybe it's the way he approaches the game, but it always just feels like he is out there going through practice shots and doing so, I don't know, sometimes 4 or 5 strokes above anyone else in the tournament. Where is he on the pantheon of golf? I know in order to talk about Tiger and to talk about Jack and to talk about those guys, you have to do what Scotty is doing right now for a decade plus. But what Scotty is doing right now is what those guys were doing for 2, 3, 4 year bursts. Where does he fit when you're talking about the golf world and the hierarchy of the greats to play this sport? And if he does this, Easton, for another 7, 8 years, then where do we start talking about him?
Yeah, he's getting close. You're right. He's going to have to do this for a number of years more. But this run that he's on these last few years, it's very much Tiger-esque. We really haven't seen it. Obviously Jordan Spieth comes to mind. He had a nice run and then has certainly had a good career, but fizzled a little bit. Rory, incredible career, but didn't necessarily turn out to be, the Tiger Woods run that we were hoping for. So we really haven't seen a run like this since Tiger Woods. So I think he's right there. I mean, he's already put together an incredible career for any golfer. But if he's able to do this and sustain this run for another decade, I mean, at that point, you're counting majors against one another. I mean, if he's able to surpass Tiger and get to Jack, then he's in a whole nother level of conversation. But right now, you are right. He's close. He's on an incredible run, but he does have a few more years to be able to get to the very top of the pyramid when we're talking about the legends of the game.
I think everyone in the golf world also has probably one eye, maybe 1.5 eyes tuned towards the Ryder Cup, right? Coming up at the end of September. What are you looking at in terms of who's qualifying for the Ryder Cup teams? And yeah, I mean, right now it looks like a difficult one to pick.
Yeah, the Ryder Cup's so much fun. It's like the Super Bowl of golf. It's something I look forward to. It falls right in the fall season. It's in there with football. I'm so excited to watch the Ryder Cup. I think any golf fan is. The U.S. is they've been struggling as of late, the last couple, and so it'll be fun to see if they can rebound. One storyline that I'm liking is this Bryson DeChambeau, right, being on the team where in years past those live golfers, were barred from being on the Ryder Cup, and now it looks like Bryson will get to be on the team. So that's going to be a lot of fun to see how these live golfers, intermix with some of the PGA Tour golfers, and he's a great watch. Maybe not everybody likes him. I'm a fan. I think he's a lot of fun. I think he's great for the game. So I'm excited to watch Bryson. Of course, Scotty. Scotty, I'd have to go back and look at his Ryder Cup record, but I'm not sure that his Ryder Cup record matches really the rest of his career. So I'll be interested to see if he's able to put a few wins on the board for Team USA. But those are two names that I'm pretty excited to watch. And then, of course, on the other side, when you're matching those guys up against Rory, and Justin Rose has had a great year too. I mean, I'll be interested to see if he makes the European team. But some really great matches, and like I said, once you get to the fall season, you've got football and you've got Ryder Cup. I don't know that there's a better time of year.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of another local point of interest, right, for in the golf world is obviously Tony Finau, and I think a lot of golf fans, when he kind of broke the streak and got that first PGA Tour win. Obviously, so talented, kind of maybe thought that there would be more to come in these last couple of years. And I'm not sure that we've seen that kind of consistent success from Tony Finau, at least maybe not so much in 2025. What have you seen from his game recently? And can he raise his level to be, one of the best golfers in the world, if not maybe the Ryder Cup standard?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'd say I think Tony's certainly one of the best in the world right now. I know that this season probably didn't end up the way that he wanted. Didn't make the cut into the BMW Championship, so his playoff run ended probably sooner than he's used to. But Tony's a phenomenal player. In fact, a former Utah State amateur champion of ours. We take a lot of pride in our champion. So we root for Tony. Obviously, a lot of tour wins. I would be surprised that if we look back in 20 years, if he doesn't have a major or two, maybe a couple. He's got the game to do it. He just needs to break through, and sometimes it just takes one, and then the second one comes quick. But I'd be surprised that when we look back on his career, if we don't see a couple majors. But these young golfers, they keep coming through, and it gets tougher and tougher each year. So it'll be fun to watch. But yeah, we're big fans of Tony, and certainly a world-class player.
Yeah, I think a lot of Utahns are. Well, thanks, Easton, so much for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to let our audience know before we let you go?
Yeah, I would just encourage everybody, golfer or not, to take up the game. Golf's really hot right now. Over the last number of years, it seems like everybody's taken up the game. I'd encourage everyone to go to our website, uga.org. If you're just starting, get a handicap index, track your progress, join the UGA. There's a lot of member benefits. We welcome golfers of all ages and abilities. So check out our website. We'd love to have you as one of our members.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us, Easton. That's Easton Folster, the executive director of the Utah Golf Association, on the line with us. It's funny. One of my favorite things to do, by the way, is to look up the handicaps of famous Utahns on and see how good of a golfer everyone really is.
Okay.
I was looking up Danny Ainges the other. Actually, we should do this in a future segment. Is actually go through some of the famous sports Utah names.
At least some of the ones you're familiar with. Let's go with it.
All right. Give me a break to kind of look it up.
Okay.
But yeah, I think would be a lot of fun.
I do know Danny Ainge is a really good golfer.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, there's a lot of golfers that come here. I think a lot of them are skiers, but they also like the private courses up in Park City area. So, like, you get Jim Furyk's, a lot of guys that actually spend a lot of time in Utah that are really, really good golfers. But, I wonder who could take that crown. Maybe sports affiliated, too, like non-golf sport, non-golf
right.
athlete golfers.
If you are Tony Finau is the best Utah golfer.
Likely.
But there are some very good amateur golfers who are professionals in other parts of other places in the sporting world.
Have you seen LeBron playing golf lately?
I have not.
He's taken up the sport.
Okay, good.
Um,
Steph is famously very good.
Steph Curry is a very good golfer. He grew up on golf courses. LeBron is not a golfer.
Okay.
And
it's not quite Charles Barkley bad. It can't be, right?
It's not, but it's not. I mean, well, actually, he probably would lose to Charles Barkley. Is the swing as bad? No. It's a little bit better, but it still is like got a little hitch in it. It's just not smooth. And it's so funny to me seeing that level of athlete struggle at a sport. For me, it's like a little like humbling for them, not for me. I like to see them like get a little bit of okay, that person's human. He sucks at golf too.
Yeah, I love it. We're just 15 days away from Utah playing UCLA, so let's get back into some football talk real quick. One thing I was kind of surprised to hear, I thought going into fall camp that Wayshawn Parker would be the number one running back, and still may be, but it sounds like it may be more of a timeshare setup than I originally thought it would be. And I'm curious, as you've talked to them, what have you learned, and how do you see that unfolding over the course of the season?
No, you are right. I think there was a little bit of a thought that he would be a bell cow back, no questions asked. I just don't think that's what happens at Utah. It doesn't matter what you did at your last school. It doesn't matter what you did in high school. If you're going to play running back at Utah, you're going to come into a fairly crowded room, and you're going to have to distance yourself in order to, even if you are kind of the bell cow, even if you get those reps, right? Even if Kyle's giving you the 15 to 20 touches that usually that number one lead back gets, in order for him to call you that, you have to really distance yourself. You have to show something in camp. You have to be there, be ready, be on shape, know the playbook, have all those things together. Because even if you are the bell cow, Tavion Thomas, Kyle might not call you that because you're not living up to the other things. Now, I don't think that Wayshawn is that situation. He just came into camp, I would say, enjoying his summer diet. Yeah. That was really it. That's all I saw. That's all I heard. As of today, it seems like he's kind of really righted that ship, and I think he'll probably be your lead back. That being said, there's going to be a lot of situations where you see a Hunter Andrews, you see a Nakiri Rogers. Wayshawn's going to be the guy, though.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I agree. In week one, he did look, a little There was a little extra inches there. And
Maurice Jones-Drew was on our show earlier.
Yeah, and
looked a little bit like that.
It can be a model, right? But like, what I thought was interesting is at his time at Washington State, I think a lot of their fans wanted him to be the bell cow back and get more touches because he is so electric and showed a lot of electric plays last year. And for whatever reason, the coaching staff up there didn't really give him a lot, or as many of those opportunities as their fans would have liked in the second half of the season.
They throw the ball 40 times a game.
Certainly that. And then I think, frankly, he's just not that good of a pass blocking back, right? Yeah. Like, and that's a concern, obviously, for what maybe Utah wants to do with Devin Dampier with the ball in his hands. So I think that is something to watch. Is, you know, it obviously was super young last year as well, and you see running backs, especially at the collegiate level, develop that over the course of their tenure, over the course of their collegiate career. You hope that Wayshawn does that, right? Like, did that over this offseason a little bit, does that in camp, does that over the course of the season, because I think if he is on the field, he is clearly the most dangerous back. And then all of a sudden, yeah, obviously the defenses have to start thinking about him a little bit, give him a little bit of credit, opening up room for Devin Dampier to do his thing. Yeah,
like you said, I think Utah wants Wayshawn to be that type of back, right? They don't necessarily want to be relying on a 2, 3, sometimes 4 running back system. They'd like to have a guy. They always like to have a guy that they can say, hey, here's the ball 22, 24 times. Go and get 130, 140 yards, whether that's on the ground or it's, you know, on the ground with a little bit of through the air. But you also have to be able to pass block. You also have to be able to get out and you know, make plays. There's so much to being a running back besides getting the ball and running between the tackles. And I don't know that he's quite there yet in some of those roles, but they have, I think, the talent, the bodies in the room that whether Wayshawn is getting 20 or 13 carries a game, you're pretty confident in the skill sets you have to kind of fill out that role, even if your bell cow is more 2 or 3 guys that kind of round that out.
When it's not Wayshawn Parker, who do you anticipate gets those next carries, or, you know, is it still obviously a room?
Yeah, it's going to probably be N'Kerry Rogers. I think you're going to see Hunter Andrews in like hybrid roles. You're going to see him maybe getting the ball on a handoff, but you also see him lining up at tight end. You're also going to see him line up at tight end and then go in motion to fullback and then get that little quick handoff on a 4th and short, right? I think that's probably the kind of hierarchy you're going to see. And then you have a couple of freshmen who are speedsters that maybe change of pace backs, right, on very limited snaps. Oh, and then you have a Nate Johnson that you can throw in there for whatever you want. Yeah. And from what we hear, Smith Snowden, a defensive player who has been taking reps at multiple offensive positions because he's just too good to keep off the field.
Extremely athletic.
You're going to see some of that as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of, as I look towards, you know, this next season, is who fills those kind of surprise roles, and how does that shake out? Are some of the biggest, I guess, question marks, but kind of in a good way for Utah football next year?
Are you asking which question? Which?
No, I'm just telling my thought, my take, my kind of curiosity, frankly, for next year is I'm curious how that shakes out. I'm with you. I think Wayshawn's probably the number 1 back, but I don't necessarily have a lot of confidence. I don't think it's 100% sure that he is the you know, a bell cow back or even necessarily getting the most snaps come November.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's a question mark because this is a Utah team that always has, you look historically, like a Zach Moss, a Devontae Booker. They even have a Tavion Thomas. Hell, even though Jaquindon Jackson was a quarterback transfer, he was one of the best like athlete recruits in the state of Texas, right? When you look at the way he's built, he looks like almost a pro-style running back. Wayshawn's not that. He's more of a scat back. He's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. He does a lot of the stuff he did at Washington State and, of course, with Jason Beck. But, yeah, it doesn't – it feels a little different. But, again, this is going to be a different offense that you saw for the last decade. Now, I do wonder, Andy, how that evolves, right? If, yes, we come out in week 1 against UCLA, you're going to see an offense you never saw at Utah. If that's a little bit of a struggle, how quickly does Kyle kind of, you see those tight ends start to creep in?
Yep.
There's another running back on the field.
Yep.
There's one less wide receiver on the field. That's 4 straight ISO rights, right? That's something that Kyle will and can do at times if he feels like that's something he's being asked to. And I don't know that Wayshawn's the back for that. So
Yeah,
I agree with you. I wonder how that hierarchy takes place.
I mean, right now everyone is saying all the right things, like just giving kind of 100% trust into Jason Beck, and that's easier said than done if results or yards, whatever.
Remember when Andy Ludwig came back?
Yeah.
We kind of had the same conversation. Like, this is a guy that Kyle trusts. This is a guy that Kyle has won a Sugar Bowl with. Agreed. Still didn't get all the reins and ended up fired. Sorry, ended up mutually parting ways.
Right.
In the middle of the season.
Good save.
It's something that I talk to Kyle a lot. He's very forthright. Mm-hmm. He will keep things from you if he's not very definitive about them. That's just how he rolls. But it seems to me that there is a different comfortability or maybe a different willingness to kind of experiment because of a new age in college football and because of what they saw Jason Beck do at New Mexico. And because when I talked to Morgan and Kyle, this is what gave me the most insight into Jason Beck of anything. I talked to Morgan and Kyle about those guys on the defensive side, right? Like scouting a Jason Beck. And they were like, it's really hard. It's really hard identifying what he's doing pre-snap, what he's trying to do those 12 seconds between snaps. I think that bodes well when you're asking a Kyle and a Morgan Scalley, tell us about this guy. Well, he's really hard to defend. Well, hopefully.
It's a level of respect, right? And I think that's something that, bodes well for Jason Beck getting more trust than maybe previous offensive coordinators have. The results have got to be there. This segment, sponsored by the Stansbury Park Golf Course. Stansbury Park Golf Course has the perfect combo of challenge, pace, and price. There's water on almost every hole, greens that roll true, and a layout that keeps you focused and fired up. And get this, you can actually play a full round without spending your whole day out there. No long waits, no overpriced green fees, just pure golf. Play 18 holes for only $45 and $50 on weekends. It is right off I-80, super easy to get to. Whether you're a weekend warrior or just need to escape the office grind, this is your place. Head to Stansbury Park Golf Course and lock in your tee time before they're gone. Stansbury Park Golf, great rates, gorgeous greens, all just minutes away. Book your tee time now at stansburypark.golf/golf course, stansburypark.golf/golf course. Coming up next, we've got Sports Court with Handy and Handy talking about the legal issues in the world of sports. It's coming up next here on The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 700. It is Sports Court time. I am Andy Larson filling in for Spence Checketts. We got Garrett Handy from Handy and Handy Law Firm with us. Garrett, how are you?
Hey, good, Andy. How are you doing?
Good. Hey, we got some interesting sports stories in the world of law, I guess. In the world of it's there's a lot cool and I guess kind of interesting stuff going on around the world of sports, especially in baseball. We're going to start with Shohei Ohtani. One of the best, maybe the best baseball player of the last decade plus, also seems to be achieving just some interesting side quests, including this weird $240 million Hawaii development that he has been accused of interfering in. What's going on there?
Yeah, he seems to be having some issues, with some agents, right? We had the previous issue with the translator. We've got the issue now with this agent. He's set to make $100 million in endorsements, and this is just one more endorsement deal. There's a big, huge luxury development going on on the Big Island, apparently in Hawaii, and they brought in Shohei Ohtani to be sort of the public-facing celebrity endorsement. And part of that deal, he purchased a $17 million home in this development, and then was going to help to market this. And part of the market they're looking for is kind of a high-end luxury Japanese market, who are Japanese folks who are buying homes in Hawaii. And so, anyway, going along here, but it's really Shohei Ohtani's agent who inserts himself into the business relationship and gets these two guys fired. One of them is the developer, and the other one was going to be the listing agent for all of these homes. And so they've now brought a lawsuit, and Shohei Ohtani's included as a defendant in the lawsuit, because this was his agent acting on his behalf regarding all this business interference. And that's really what the claim is that this agent got in here and muddied things up and got them fired and really threw their weight around. And so in a way, it's kind of a tortious business interference type of lawsuit. But it's just one more off-the-field legal problem, for Shohei Ohtani to deal with involving an agent.
Yeah, so strange. Next one we want to talk about is Jon Gruden. In his case with the NFL, there's been another step in this kind of lengthy process that we've seen in his lawsuit. Tell us about what that lawsuit was for and what's the latest on it.
Yeah, it has been a lengthy lawsuit. And again, just the quick backstory on this is there's the investigation that's going on with the Washington Commanders. I think that was back in 2021. And as part of that, there was this leak of emails. And the emails that were leaked had Jon Gruden's name on it. And these were, racist, homophobic, sexist emails. And it resulted in him resigning from his job as head coach of the Raiders. And so anyway, he files this lawsuit against the NFL and Roger Goodell over this. He was essentially alleging that the leak of these emails was orchestrated by the NFL and by Roger Goodell to get him out of the NFL. And so he brought this case, and what the fight has centered around now is whether or not the case was going to have to be heard through an arbitration process, as opposed to just in Nevada State courts. And so, anytime we've got a case with the NFL, they've got a pretty strong arbitration clause for anything involving a player or a coach bringing a claim. But at the time, if you remember, he was actually an analyst. When these emails were written, he was an analyst for the NFL Monday Night Football. And so that was his argument, and this has gone now all the way to the Nevada State Supreme Court, and they have sided with Jon Gruden on this and said, yeah, you were not an employee, and you're not bound by this arbitration agreement. The case is not over, unfortunately. We're still going to be talking about this. The NFL now is saying that they're going to appeal this. They really want to hold this thing in private and not have these allegations aired in public state court.
Our third topic today, this is such an interesting lawsuit in the new world of college football between the University of Wisconsin and the University of Miami in a tampering lawsuit. How does that work, and what exactly has happened here?
Well, this is I think a big case because this is all new territory for us, right? But what's happening now is, okay, we've got the House settlement, we've got these revenue sharing agreements, and things are starting to, and maybe through some legislation, we're going to start to see things settle down a little bit, especially in regards to the issue of the transfer portal. And so here you have one school, that's Wisconsin, accusing Miami of tampering over a player that they had signed. They had signed this Xavier Lucas. He's a defensive back. And they're saying, and it was Wisconsin and their NIL collective, that they had a deal with him, right? They had a contract. They had a binding revenue sharing deal with this Xavier Lucas. Well, the story is, according to Wisconsin anyway, is that significant University of Miami alumni reaches out to Lucas and his family when he's home on winter break in South Florida, and he decommits transfers to Miami. And so this is a tampering case. Again, we really, these sort of things get alleged and stuff, and the NCAA used to be a force here, but now this is just a lawsuit between two schools. And so what's happened is we've now seen Miami's motion to dismiss, and I think it's significant for a couple of reasons. One, this motion to dismiss, Miami's arguing that Wisconsin actually doesn't have jurisdiction over the University of Miami in the state of Wisconsin because, and that goes to the second point, they've got a sworn statement from Xavier Lucas saying, no one from Miami reached out to me. This was on my own free will and accord. I decided myself to decommit, unenroll from Wisconsin and enroll at Miami, and nobody from Miami pressured me to do that. So we'll see what the cards are that Wisconsin has to play. I think they've got to have some evidence to back up this, this kind of secret meeting, this tampering that they alleged took place. But I think this is something that a lot of colleges are going to be watching, a lot of athletic programs watching this case, because it could really set a precedent for schools being careful about, having a player through the transfer portal come to their school when there is a binding revenue sharing contract in place.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting how that turns out. And then I think this is maybe the most viral story of the last month, and unfortunately in a negative way, but Sha'Carri Richardson, obviously an Olympian sprinter, arrested for domestic violence. The video went viral. What's next for her and her legal situation?
Well, she spent a night in jail, right? And then she was able to come out, right? I mean, they were, her and Christian Coleman, I think what was going on, they were headed to Eugene. This happened in the Seattle-Tacoma airport, but they were headed to Eugene for the U.S. Track and Field Championships. And they get in this altercation right there in the airport, right in front of TSA, and there's a bunch of cameras in the airport. You mentioned the video. It's viral. You can see it. She's pushing him around and grabbing his backpack and threw some headphones at him. And he's trying pretty diligently the entire time to walk away from this situation and get away from her. And she's just pretty unrelenting on this. And so I think the discussion's really interesting with the police and her. She keeps saying over and over, we were just having an argument. And you can see this officer saying, well, we've got video, and that's in the state of Washington. That's not what an argument looks like. You're physically pushing him and shoving him. That's assault. He's your boyfriend. You guys have both admitted you're in a relationship. That's domestic violence. And again, she's kind of parsing words with this officer saying, well, it's not violence. And he's going, well, whatever. You're going to be arrested and go to jail. So she did. She spent a night in jail. She got out. I think what's next for her is, I don't think the case is really going anywhere. And part of the reason is because Christian Coleman is not wanting to press this issue. He was trying to talk the police into dropping it right there at the airport, and didn't want to be, a victim in this situation. And so I think it's going to go away, but not a good look for Sha'Carri Richardson, Christian Coleman, and USA Track and Field.
Yeah, certainly. Garrett, tell us about Handy and Handy, the law firm, and what you guys do and how people can get connected to you.
Yeah, of course, Andy. Well, we're a personal injury law firm, so we help people who've been injured in accidents. We help them through the process, make sure they get the compensation they deserve. If we can help anyone out there, please give us a call. Our number is 801-264-6677, or go to our website, handylawutah.com.
Perfect. Hey, thanks so much, Garrett, for joining us and helping out with the legal issues around the world of sports.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
All right, coming up, we got to take a break here, but then coming up, we're going to be talking more sports. We got Trevor Riley coming in at the 4 o'clock hour. Excited to have him here. But for now, we got to take a break. This is The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 792.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. I don't know that it is 5 o'clock somewhere, Porter, but appreciate the
It's
effort
4:48 somewhere.
This is A Drive with Spence Checketts. I'm Andy Larson, filling in for Spence. I'm the Utah Jazz beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. Porter, our producer, and joining us as well for some good conversation. Had a lot of good Utah football talk in these first couple hours, and then we've got Trevor Riley joining us at the 4 o'clock hour. Right now, though, I want to talk with Colton with Roosters Brewing. He's the head brewer at their 25th Street location. Colton, first of all, how are you?
I'm doing real well. How about yourself?
Good. Hey, I got to say, I love your brewery. Like, it's one of my favorite stops. I mean, frankly, every time I go to Salt Lake Airport for a flight to a Jazz game or whatever, if I've got time, I'm stopping in your location for a quick beer, and I think you guys do good work.
Fantastic. I appreciate hearing it. Thank you.
So you've got a new beer you want to tell our audience about, and it looks like it's a little bit of fall themed, a little bit maybe makes a lot of sense with football season coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so what we've got coming out is our Cosmic Autumn Rebellion pumpkin chocolate chip cookie beer. It might sound like a mouthful, but it's delightful. It's a nice amber color, a little bit sweet, a little fall. I don't know. It's great for this time of year. What's coming up once it gets a little cooler.
Is that on draft or in bottle or where can we get it?
It's going to be on both. So here, within the next week or two, it should be hitting Harmons and Mavericks, and then after that, we'll have it on draft at a couple of our locations. That's to be determined, but we'll definitely be on at our B Street location and most likely our Layton location. I
suspect an autumn pumpkin beer with chocolate chips is going to be a pretty good seller, especially come August, September, October, right? Like I think should be a popular one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we have the production on a little bit this year, so hopefully people can get it before it's out because it's quick.
Sounds good. Tell us about the locations of Rooster Brewing and where people can find you.
Yeah, so we've got 3 main locations. We've got our B Street location, which is our production facility, 21 or older location. Then we've also got our original 25th Street location, which is a full restaurant, bar, and all that. You bring the family there. Same with our Layton location out there on Heritage Park Boulevard in Layton. Same setup as the 25th, all ages. And then, of course, we've got our location in the airport, but that one you're only getting to if you're heading out of town or coming in. So,
yeah, it is after security. So you may have to, it's worth booking the flight, though, to drink some Roosters beer from time to time. Colton,
absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining us today and telling us about the new beer.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you got apparently one more thing to tease. I didn't realize you've got an event coming up.
Oh, yeah. So we've got an event coming up here in October 11th. It's going to be our For the Love of Beer event. I believe it's going to be at our B Street location. We're going to be posting a bunch of details on it on our socials, so keep an eye out for that. And, continue drinking and continue enjoying our beers. So
it's not hard to do when you make such good beers. Again, thanks so much, Colton, for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the reminder there, Porter, on the event. I almost lost the plot on teasing that, but
I'm here for a reason.
Look, it's any opportunity to drink beer, and especially Roosters Brewing beer, is a good time, right? Like, so I want to know about that event. I'm sure our listeners do too.
I accidentally tried Roosters once because it was similar to the situations I'm sure you had. I had a layover. A flight out of Salt Lake that got delayed rather, and ended up needing a little hangout. I didn't want to drive home. I don't want to drive home from the airport for like a 45-hour long delay. So
45-hour long? 45 minutes.
45 to hour long delay.
Oh, okay.
So I just hung out at Roosters, and yeah, it was good. Their food's good too, which usually got to call Colton out here. Usually they bring us in some food.
Ooh.
Maybe Spence. Maybe it's because Spence is gone. We're hungry, Colton. But thank you so much.
Yes, we're second-class citizens. We understand. Like I don't deserve food. I'm just a guy.
There we go. Yeah. Larson and Larson. We're not that Checketts guy.
We're not a law firm. We're not anything.
No. We're a ragtag radio show.
Well, I will say, I get Salt Lake Tribune, Utah Jazz beat writer. That's my claim to fame.
Listen, Andy, you could be like digging trenches. What if this wasn't your career path? Would you be like an accountant? Would you be a banker?
Yeah, like I think I was a math major, so there's a lot of good fields I could go in. I kind of growing up envisioned myself as a finance bro, believe
Okay.
it or not. And went the sports bro direction anyway, the sports nerd direction. Honestly, I'm not bro enough to be a bro.
Yeah, I don't have a clue, Andy. If it weren't for sports media, I'd be smoking darts and pounding fence posts or something. I wouldn't be here.
Our friend Tony Jones and I always talk about this. Just like we always have this debate on how hard this Jazz beat writer job is, right? And the truth is, obviously, it is not hard. But Tony swears that this is one of the hardest jobs in America. And I'm like, nah, man, they're paying us to go to basketball games and write about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty cushy.
I'll say this: it's challenging to be a sports media person. It is
Sure.
not hard.
Sure. Yes, right.
Different
agreed.
things. It's not difficult. There are challenges. There are a lot of things. But I've done the trench digging jobs. I've pulled electrical wire.
Yeah.
I'd rather be doing this.
We're not coal miners, you know. It's just, yeah. We're sitting in a air conditioned room right now talking about sports. Later on, I'll go to a sporting event and then write about it on a laptop. It's there are long hours and you fly away from your family and blah 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 blah. But like in the end, we have some pretty awesome jobs.
Those are the parts where I like to remind people it does get like it's a little different, right? When you mentioned the beat thing, when you're gone from your home for 14 days, maybe longer, that to me, one of the reasons I like radio and not beat stuff, I'm good with that, right? When you start going on these Western road trips that are followed by playoffs, that are followed by free agency, it's a lot. It's a lot of energy you got to expend. But again,
look, when the Jazz don't make the playoffs and aren't in the running for any free agents,
vacation
it's a
time.
long off season. And I'm itching for some basketball, and we're still 6 weeks, 2 months away. Anyway, football I think is going to ease a lot of that though for me. Looking forward to contributing more to our football coverage at the Salt Lake Tribune over the months to come. Let's go ahead and take a break because we have Trevor Riley joining us in the 4 o'clock hour to talk more football, especially what's going up on the Hill. This is The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 700. All right, welcome into the Drive with Spence Checketts. As you can tell, I'm not Spence Checketts. I'm Andy Larson, the Utah Jazz beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. Porter Larson producing us and helping us out with the show as always. But in studio right now, we've got the man himself, Trevor Riley. Trevor, man, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you. You're Scandinavian. I can see it, man. It's good to see a fellow
I don't hide it at all with the
Scandinavian.
blonde hair, blue eyes.
I'm telling you.
We were talking in the break. You used to live in Sweden, and I've only been there for like a week at a time. But I feel it is my I'm actually Norwegian, not Swedish. But hey, it's Scandinavia.
Dude, my grandpa drove around Harlan Johnson with the Norwegian flag on the back of his car for 40 years.
Did he really?
Yeah, so I'm all the way through, man, and great country. I was there as a missionary. It was fun.
Yeah.
I actually played basketball for Planya Luleå. I was practicing with them and North Shipping. Funny story, George Gervin's son. Okay, he's over there just a short stint. So I used to practice with the guys. I was the tallest, keeping him in shape. I was going to go play football after, so I kept in shape. And missionary work's tough in Scandinavia. Okay, so hoops. All right, so we played some hoops. So I started practicing with these teams, and I got to tell you, dude, the game is improving over there. Scandinavia, we got Lauri Markkanen, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, he's a Finnish guy, and that all used to be Sweden, by the way. So it's kind of all the same. But I'm excited for the Jazz this year. I didn't know you were still writing for the Jazz, so I'm excited for their season.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because they are. Well, okay. If you look at the Vegas over/unders, it's not pretty. They're projected to win 18 games next year. That's the
rough.
lowest that any team has been projected to win since, I think, the 2014 Philadelphia 76ers, the process Joel Embiid 76ers, right?
Yeah,
so
that's rough.
Yeah.
Well, John Stockton, he's talking a lot now. He's saying he's not a huge fan of this tanking thing and
load management.
So what's your take on that? Kawhi kind of started load management, and now we're into this thing where it's let's manage the roster to death so we can get better picks. Is that still a viable thing to do?
It's certainly what the Jazz are doing. It's tough because I think the players get all the crap, all the talk about load management. When really, I talk or tanking even too. I talked to John Collins every day. He wanted to play every day. I talked to Colin Sexton every day. He wanted to play every day. I talked to Lauri Markkanen every day. He wanted to play every day. All these guys wanted to play, and it was either the health staff or the front office of the team that was holding them out. And yet, it's those guys who are getting the stick on social media.
Yeah.
That's tough, I think. And so, I don't think John Stockton in his head is blaming Danny Ainge and the Jazz's front office for that. I think he's blaming the players in it. And, it's not fair because those guys want to play. So I'm excited for, John Collins and Colin Sexton, who I think are both good dudes, to get a chance to go out and actually play basketball, do what they do best at the height of their craft for, solid NBA teams and show what they can do in maybe a more winning situation.
Lauri Markkanen, he looks like just the perfect athlete. Okay, he's a freak show when you see him, man. He's gotten in great shape, and he just looks like he's going to beat no one can stop him. He's huge. He can shoot. He's got his upper body looks good. Looks like a football player.
It's funny. He says after he retires, he wants to just get absolutely yoked. Like he wants to add 30 pounds of muscle. Have you seen like Mike Bibby after retirement?
Oh yeah, dude.
Absolutely
yoked, bro. He is yoked, man.
In the muscle shirts and is just as big as you can get in the upper body.
He looks like one of them referees who wear small shirts.
Yes.
Like Ed Hockley type dudes.
Yep. Absolutely. Like it's funny. So I can totally see it because like he's one of those guys who's works extremely hard and loves kind of keeping in shape and that part of being a professional athlete.
Well, I used to live with 6 Finnish guys in my lifetime. On my mission, they kept sending me Finnish guys. These guys are all ex-military. Okay, all super interesting guys. They got a lot of skills. Super talented with knives.
Okay.
For whatever reason, knives are a big deal in Finland. Okay, and also little known fact, the most literate country in the world, Finland.
Huh.
And so Lauri, I think he's a good fit for Utah. Obviously, with the culture and with the way he plays hard. I think I'm going to take the over on 18 wins, though.
I think I am too. Frankly, 18 wins is just so low, and you've got Lauri Markkanen, you've got Walker Kessler. I think if one of the young players pops and is able to play all season, those guys play more than they did last year. I'm not predicting a playoff spot for them, but I do think they can beat 18 wins. I just think that's such a low bar.
Yeah, and winning maybe not be the best thing for the program, but you want to be in the games, right? You don't want to get blown out every night because then the fans will revolt on you, and that's Cleveland, right? You don't want to be Cleveland Browns of the NBA where they're wearing brown bags to your games, and even the 76ers a few years ago, that didn't work. Like they never even made an NBA final. So trying to win has always been a hallmark of sports, and as a guy who's involved with sports, you want to win. What do they say? You play to win the game.
Yeah, and and the Jazz didn't last year, and I give, Utah fans, right? I give Jazz fans a lot of credit for sticking it out and being as still filling the Delta Center in March and April when the team was 13-70, and there are a lot of arenas. I travel around the country to watch, whether it's the Atlanta Hawks or the New Orleans Pelicans, some good teams and bad teams that don't get the kind of attendance that we see for Jazz games, and obviously Mammoth games now too in the Delta Center. It is pretty remarkable, I think, how good Utah fans are. I think you probably felt that with the Utes as well.
Absolutely, man. We were 5-7 and still selling out games. The Utah fans are fantastic all the way through. BYU, they struggle a little bit with the attendance when they're not very good. They got a big stadium to fill, but for the most part, the fan in the state of Utah is a solid sports fan. And it goes back to a lot of different things, but basketball is kind of the sport here. It always has been. Football has taken over a little bit, but when the Jazz are good, dude, there's nothing like when the Jazz are good.
Yeah. I mean, I go back to like the 97 and 98 finals and just how, like the TV ratings were above 50% for those games. Just everyone in the community watching them. I remember like growing up, my cul-de-sac was painted with the Jazz logo and just like the community really getting involved in a cool way. And I think we see that sometimes when the Utes are good and like getting into a Rose Bowl, but maybe not to the same extent that it was 27 years ago now, I guess, with the NBA Finals.
And, you're not playing church ball as much, right? So football is kind of coming back into the fold here. And, BYU with 11 wins, and Utah is always a story every year. Are they going to make a crack? Are they going to crack the playoff, right? That's the big story this year. Is Utah going to crack the playoff, I think. And BYU, obviously, they're always going to be in it. It's a little harder to recruit down there, so every year is hit or miss sometimes, But I see Utah as a big-time contender. They look good in the scrimmage. I was there on Saturday. They look pretty good.
Let's get into the Utah football talk because we are just 15 days away from UCLA and the start of, I think, an exciting season, maybe one that a bounce-back season, obviously, for the Utes. What is it that most excites you about this Utes team as you watch them at scrimmages and in fall camp?
I like the offensive coordinator. Yeah. He's got some swag, okay? I like his attitude. I like the offensive scheme. I think it fits the quarterback extremely well. That's obvious from last year in New Mexico. The line is intriguing. The big story for me is going to be Morgan Scalley, though. Okay, I think he's got an axe to grind with last season. They had a great defense last year. Just didn't get a lot of help on the offensive side. So the team wasn't great, but I think they're going to be really good on defense, man. They got this guy Smith Snow, and they got a D-line that's coming back. They got Lander Barton. And I just think they're going to tear it up, man. I think they're going to be great.
I think they absolutely have every chance to be, right? And I think that's a little bit all you can give yourself. I think, on the offensive side of it's got to be a turnaround. But we were talking about this first segment. The quarterback situation was so rough last year once Cam went down and just even when he played wasn't healthy, and it obviously showed. I was looking at Isaac Wilson. He was the 300th ranked Pro Football Focus quarterback last year, and that's tough.
Yeah, tough.
Devin Dampier was 16th. And, maybe a more consistent Big 12 schedule, it's a little bit tougher, but he also has another year under his belt too, a system he's familiar with. How do you see him playing next year? And what can he do at the quarterback spot?
I think, let's put it this way: if we win 10 games in the regular season, and he's healthy, he's going to be I think he'll be in the conversations as one of the best players in the country. And I say that with all with all due respect to the game. That's a very outlandish thing to say. Maybe think about it, man. They ran for 3,000 yards last year in New Mexico. Okay, he passed for whatever yards he passed for, but he is a guy who's run this offense. He can make plays out of the pocket. He can sit in the pocket and deliver the ball accurately. And when all things break down, he can take off and get you a first down. So that's been talked about ad nauseum a little bit, but I think we really have to understand this is a real playmaker. We haven't had a guy like this really in a number of years since really Alex Smith.
You think even you wouldn't even put Huntley in that conversation?
Huntley was good, right? But Huntley was in the pocket, okay, until his last season with Andy Ludwig. Huntley struggled, and I coached there in 2018. I was there for a year with Troy, and we were running a version of this offense. He just, for whatever reason, he peaked his senior year. I think this kid has had a better resume, obviously, the last year or two, whatever he's played. And granted, it's at a lower level, but if it scales correctly, I see us having a big-time offensive year. It's been a number of years since we've had a big-time offensive year, and I see that in the making.
The line looks really strong. What are you looking forward to most about that line play?
Health. We got to stay healthy, okay? Especially the two big fellows on the bookends there, Lomu and what's the big fella, Fano, right? We've spent a lot of money on those guys. We've been training those guys up. They're both probably going to be drafted in the first 2 days. Then they got Jaron Kump, right? They got a center who's 6'5", 200, 300 and something pounds, and he was a 5-star. I mean, they just got so many guys with so many, preseason accolades. Like, these guys should be really good. We got to stay healthy. We got to stay healthy up there.
One of the thing I've been talking about with OC, Sean O'Connell, who hosts obviously the show before us, is it only really takes a touchdown better. You look at the 5-7 record last year, and it looks really ugly, and at times it definitely was. But they stayed in those games with the quality of the defense, right? Like, you lost 14-17 to Houston by only scoring 2 scores, right? And it's hard to imagine with just even if you're low on Devin Dampier and as a transfer, it just is going to be better than the quarterback situation was last year. And then I kind of do believe in Wayshawn Parker a little bit. Like, I think the wide receiver room is a little bit of a question mark, but I think there's enough guys there that you can kind of find some playmaking there. I just see, even if this Utah offense is kind of just middle of the pack, that sets him up for a really pretty successful Big 12 season, I think.
Absolutely, and I go back to what I said about the offensive coordinator. I think he can manufacture offense with lesser players at the skill position. That's the beauty of the spread. If it's run correctly, you can manufacture offense with lesser athletes.
How does that work?
Well, think Mike Leach, okay, Texas Tech, and I signed there out of high school, so I'm very familiar with the guy. Mike Crabtree was a quarterback at Dallas Carter. He brings him in his freshman year. He's all-world. He's an All-American. And Graham Harrell and those guys, the other receivers you don't remember, but they can win with bad players. Washington State, they won 11 games up there with Leach. I don't think you could name me one player on the roster.
Good point.
Okay, so when you start scaling that, when it's run properly, it's very hard to stop. Defensively, you're on the field a lot, okay, and you're tired, right, and you're out of shape. And if you're not in shape, then it's really a problem in the second half. So again, if we can keep the momentum where everybody stays healthy, I know that sounds like a prayer, really, but we're due for. We haven't had a season where we started and finished the year with the same quarterback since 2019. So we're due for some good fortune there. We really are, especially after last season.
I think that's definitely true. Porter and I were talking about that too with Jason Beck. Right now in fall camp, and I think this is genuine and true, they're putting 100% trust into Jason Beck's offense.
Oh, yeah.
I think sometimes that has been a question mark with Kyle Whittingham and his offensive coordinators in the past, right?
Sure.
Certainly, maybe we saw that a little bit last year, is how much trust do you give the offensive coordinator versus kind of wanting to play football the way Kyle Whittingham does, and which has obviously been tremendously successful as well. Do you see that trust maintaining with Jason Beck throughout the season and then, heck, for seasons to come?
I can't answer that. Okay, I worked for Deion Sanders and Kyle Whittingham. Go look up how many OCs those guys have gone through, okay?
Yeah.
And so they're both defensive guys, right? And I'm a defensive guy, and I don't have very much patience for bad offense either because I don't want to be on the field.
Right.
So it's one of those things where Kyle is so seasoned, right? And he's been through the ringer in so many different ways. He's been a part of Urban's offenses. He's been a part of Ron McBride's type of offenses. He's had Andy Ludwig. He's had Troy Taylor. He's had Brian Johnson, Andy Rod. He's had so many different shades of offense, right? I think this guy's going to put it all together. I really, really believe in this guy. I really, really believe that he has the answer that we need at Utah.
Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. You mentioned Lander Barton. You mentioned some of the players coming back. What do you think will be the hallmark of this Utah defense? Is it just pretty similar to what we saw last year, or are there changes?
Well, Scalley's a genius. Okay, that's not a revelation, right? He's very, very smart, and look at the team. Look at the defenses he's put out. Look at the players he's put in the NFL, and I just think this is going to be the crescendo year. All right, we thought it was going to be last year with Cam coming back. I think it's this year. I think this is the year where all the stars line up. Everybody stays healthy. Because last year, to your point, I'm at the Colorado game. I'm on the sideline. They whooped them defensively. They couldn't handle the scramble drill, right? But schematically, they shut them down. Go watch the tape, right? They're making plays on bombs, and he's rolling around out there, and it's playing a lot ball. And I think that we just need to get lucky a little bit in some areas. We need to get healthy in some areas. We need to stay healthy. But all that, I just with Jason Beck, with Morgan Scalley, with Smith Snowden, with Barton, with the D-line. There's Via Mahe has been there how many years? 7, okay? I coached him in 8. I remember we signed him, okay? It was 6 years ago. He went on a mission. So we got a lot of experience. They got a lot of good players. They got draftable players. And then they got, behind, the guy running the show, Scally, and I got all the trust in the world in that guy. I think it's going to be the year where everything comes together.
You call him a genius. What makes him different and special?
He can call plays, and you can see it on the sideline, so I'm not giving away the hand. He'll wait till the offense lines up, okay? He might even wait for a motion, and then he'll call the play 5 seconds before the play is going to be snapped. And he is those guys that dialed in, and he's that dialed into what they're doing. He's just on another level, dude. People aren't doing that, all right? That's just not something that is done, especially at the collegiate level where you're waiting 5-6 seconds before the clock is, or before they're going to snap the ball to call play. And it's next level stuff. It really is.
And I think, obviously we've seen that with the success. I mean, what Utah's defense did last year with how much time they had to spend on the field.
Oh, my goodness.
And, I mean, again, we were talking about this earlier, but just when you lose, and it would have been so easy to lose trust in the quarterback last year and the quarterback situation and the offense overall, and then, you're obviously gassed, but you're kind of mentally gassed as well because it's your 11th time on the field in the football game, right? I got to imagine with the offense being better, even if the defense were to take a step back, which I don't think it will, just the results, at the end of games, second half, third quarter, fourth quarter, I think I've got to be better. It's got to be. I think you have every reason to be optimistic.
Well, think about this: that offense is going to have to face this defense. They've been facing them all spring, and they faced them all camp. And when you think about what's really going on, they're getting refined. Okay, the refiner's fire, right? Our iron sharpens iron. All those mantras. So they're going to go out in this first game, and they may have been practicing against a top 10 defense, and maybe the best defense in the country, at least in the Big 12. We'll talk about the Big 12. And then all of a sudden, you go out and you play your first game. So that's a good feeling if you're an offensive coordinator. Yeah, well, this should be, guys, this should be easier. Jordan used to say the practices are so dang hard, the games are easy. And that's a cliche of all cliches, but really think about what we're saying here. I'm getting trained by Morgan Scally, and then I'm going to go play, UCLA first game?
Yeah.
That's a good feeling if I'm an offensive coordinator, right? If everybody's healthy, I'm feeling pretty good going into the game plan.
And, UCLA is it's in a tough environment, to be sure, but it's not a super difficult opponent in week one. Like, it's a game the Utes will be favored in, I think.
Oh, UCLA's always been a little soft, right? Let's just be real. It's a basketball school, okay? It's like Kansas. Right? They have a year here or there, but it's a basketball school with all due respect, okay? And it's been a number of years since George Farmer and Deshaun Foster were back there with Cade McNown. It's been a lot of years, okay? And before that, he had the 80s. They had a few good runs, but they've been hit or miss, and the atmosphere is good when they're good, okay? So they may fill it up for that game, and I think they will. But for the most part, we're gonna turn that stadium red. I think we're gonna have a good showing.
That's
there.
a great point. We saw that at the Rose Bowl, certainly in the
Pac-12
championship games. Like, it's gonna feel like a Pac-12 game down there. Like I think that's kind of exciting.
I remember when they came out here in 2011. Okay, Rick Neuheisel and Norm Chow. We crushed them, right? It was our first year in the Pac-12. We lit them. It snowed. They weren't ready for that, right? So we should have the toughness factor on our side, right? And I think that with the QB and with just the whole package, I think we should whoop them, all right? I really think we should whoop them. That means 2 scores.
Do you think, do you have 100% confidence in new offensive coordinator, but obviously one Devin Napier is comfortable with? Like, do you have everything instituted by week 1 ready to go, or is there, I guess?
I think so.
Okay. The
spread is not, Mike Leach didn't have a playbook, dude. You come out with a napkin and whoop everybody. And not saying he's running Leach's offense, but when you start talking about the guys, they're not running a lot of plays, dude. They're putting some window dressing on there, and they're getting a lot of plays in the game. And I think Kyle Whittingham versus Deshaun Foster. I'm gonna take Kyle. And in chess game, I'm gonna take Kyle in that one. I just am.
I think that's reasonable. Is there any part of this Big 12 schedule, or any other team in the Big 12 that you think can really kind of compete with Utah, or that you're as optimistic about the Utes?
I think we're going to run over everybody if we stay healthy up front. Okay, I don't know about our running back, but gosh dang, I put me back there, I'll get 4 yards to carry. Okay, those are some monsters up there. I think again, it all comes down to health, and then no one's talking about the tight end room. Yeah. It's tight end university, all right? And I had a little piece of part of that, so I'm be a little braggadocious, right? Yep. But gosh dang it, we go look at the NFL. We got some guys in there, all right? And Freddie has a stable. Okay, Fred Whittingham doesn't get enough credit. He's one of the best tight end coaches in the country, and as a quarterback who's short, okay, he's short. He's under 6 feet. When you have a tight end, I know I can get the ball to this guy in a pinch. That's a good feeling. That's a great feeling to have. And the last thing I'll say about that team, right? We move on to a different segment. Utah is ready for this. Okay, we've almost been there so many times. Yeah. This is we're ready to take that leap. I think we're now, I want to call it becoming made men. in a somatic sense. You know what I'm saying? We want to take that step. We're now they're not asking if we're BYU anymore in the South, right? That's my goal. I just came from Mississippi. Oh, you went to Utah. Jim McMahon, right? And that's
No.
No. The Mormons, right? Well, yeah, but now, so we want to be. We're ready for this. I think this is the year where we make the jump.
What is that jump? Is that
we're getting
Big 12 championship? Is that
I think
college football playoff?
I think we're in all that, right? You know, I don't want to get specifics because you know how it goes. It comes down to 4 or 5 plays, right? But I think all that. I think all that's in the. It's on the horizon. It's right there for us. Right, and I think Coach made the right hire at OC. I think it's a big, and that's always been the big issue, right? Kyle would be the first to admit it, right? Do we have the right guy in place? I think we got the right guy.
It's been, I think, an up and down situation with the offensive coordinator. To be sure, the multiple offensive coordinators. This one, you just look at what he was able to do at New Mexico last year, and the point totals they put up at New Mexico.
Well, winning 5 games there, they fired Rocky Long. It was the biggest mistake they ever made. They thought they were something, all right? Winning 5 games in New Mexico. Guys, who do you recruit out of there, guys? Okay, we signed Connor O'Toole. He's probably the only guy we've signed out of there in 20 years. We're neighbors.
Yeah.
I said the same thing about Colorado. They ain't got no high school kids, guys. They're not very good. So I'm looking forward to a great season for Utah and also BYU. I think they're going to have a good season too.
Let's talk about that and more. And I also want to get to Utah Islanders talk with you a little bit as well next segment, if you're cool with that.
Absolutely.
We've got the Dish Pros joining us now, though. Let's go ahead and hear from them. What's going on?
Hey, thanks so much for having us on. You know, it is an excellent time to take advantage of the offers with Dish. And I've not seen an offer stacked this deep, and this is such a cool promotion because it'll save you money. It'll get you all of the games. You'll have the best TV experience out there, plus be able to have all the streaming built into one system with one remote. Call us up today. Get the 2-year promotion with the 2-year price guarantee, because this will be legitimately $30+ a month cheaper than what you're currently paying, especially DirecTV and cable. You might see even a bigger discount than that per month, which adds up. But then on top of that, why don't we throw in 3 months of that whole entire service for free? We'll throw in Showtime and Paramount Plus free for 4 months. And how about the multi-sports pack, which includes the NFL Red Zone free for 6 months? Very cool offer. Tons of things in here. You're going to get all the sports you need. It's really the best solution out there. And you get the best price when you call us with the best promotion Dish has ever done. Plus, we'll throw in dinner at JCW's if you call right now. So don't wait. Don't continue to overpay or wait for your cable or DirecTV to raise your bill again. Call now and lock in a price for 2 years and get 3 months free. 424-DISH. Call us now, 801-424-3474.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan. We'll talk to you soon. We'll have more with Trevor Riley from the Utah Islanders, but also you guys just know him from the University of Utah. Let's be honest. Talk more football with him coming up next here on ESPN 792.1 FM. All right, welcome back into the Drive with Spence Checketts. I'm not Spence Checketts. I'm Andy Larson, though, Utah Jazz beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. Porter Larson helping us behind the glass, producing the show, but still in studio for our second segment with Trevor Riley. You know him, you love him, from the University of Utah. Also, the Utah Islanders now. And I wanted to get into this with you a little bit. You know, I'm a Jazz guy, NBA guy. I know the world of college football and professional football, the NFL, but I don't know, I guess, the other levels of professional football as well, and I would like you to explain it to me.
Well, and think of it this way, right? Football is now becoming like baseball. No salary cap. At least college football is. And we'll say the NFL is the MLB, right? And then AAA's, we'll say, is Power 5 or Power 4 now. And then it scales from there, right? You have Utah State, probably AA, and, FCS is right. So we're about single A ball. We're at the bottom, right? Independent single A ball. But we're still we're a farm team. So our goal is to send players ideally to Utah and BYU, and we want to be a stop where you don't have to go to Ephraim to play college football, right? We're in Harriman, we're in Salt Lake, we're in Utah County, and we're playing junior college and Division II and III teams, and we're playing semi-pro teams, and really what we're doing is we're giving kids a shot. You get free school if you come with us. We're trade school. And we have life after football programs. We have an entrepreneur school we're starting. We're working on getting a facility. And because we are legitimized now with the Salt Lake Community College, it's just a matter of time. We're scaling now. So this is the first season where we're legitimate with affiliated. We're partner. It's called an academic partnership with Salt Lake Community College. And so we're going to see how this goes. But I'm very optimistic because we've needed junior college football in this area for forever. I mean, there was always Rick's College up in Idaho, and then there was Ephraim. Why not in our area? So. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I think for me, I see, I'm from California. I grew up right next to the Indian Reservation, Liceno Degano tribe down in San Diego, and tremendous athletes, that just, the stories. We don't need to get into all that. It's tough to get out of that type of situation. So for me, it's personal. I had a lot of guys I went to school with, guys that lived with me that would have done this program. And so I think for Utah, there's a lot of, especially on the west side of town, as I would say, in some of the areas that there's going to be kids who, for whatever reason, they need a place to go. Then there's going to be kids who maybe come off missions or kids who maybe switch schools. There's just so many different situations in the state of Utah. Utah's so unique in that way that we don't really need to get kids outside of the state, I don't think, or at least the Intermountain area. I think we're going to be very local, and we are right now, but we're going to continue to be local. And our goal is to send local kids, back to Utah and BYU. I want to train them. I think if they say you're not good enough, I think we can get you good enough.
You're building this team. You're putting together players. I mean, you were on the phone in between our segments there during the break, trying to get new players on your, trying to build a football team. What's that like, and how do you do that? How do you do that well?
Well, you just start calling your old contacts, right? I talked to Corey Dodds. I talked to Chaz Walker. I talked to Ray Stowers. I got to find John Penasini down I think he's at West Jordan. All these guys I either coached or played with, because I'm not really into the local scene like I used to be. But we got to have a good relationship with the local high schools. That's the first things, right? We're going out to some high schools, and then we'll be handing out flyers. We need people to come to the games, right? This is an expensive venture. We want you to come watch us. But it's not. We're not making money off this deal. I mean, it's pennies. We're here to build this thing. We're here for the long haul. Our owner, Chris Sullivan, and his wife, they own this company called Screen Protect, among other businesses he runs. He's committed to see this thing through. So myself, Brian Blecken, Sandy Valnuku, Steve Savoy, among others, John New. Those are all ex-Utes, by the way.
Yeah.
They're on the staff.
Let's remember some guys. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and we got a guy his name's Junior. He just came from the University of Texas offensive line. He's helping our offensive line. So we have some juice, all right? And if you're a kid out there, I'm looking for some DBs right now. I'm looking for some linemen, all right? Could use a quarterback, all right? Let us know. Find us on social media. We're at Utah Islanders, all right? Hit us up. If you have talent and you want to play and you have that drive, we got a place for you.
There's got to be somebody listening right now who knows someone who can help you out, right?
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the cool power of the show and this medium is that the voices gets you out there. One of the we had in the commercial break just now a promo for your guys' first game.
Yep.
Tell us. I know you probably just heard it a few minutes ago, but let's hear it from you.
Well, we're playing next Saturday. Okay, we'll be the only show in town besides Pop Warner or Ute Conference football, but there is no college football next weekend in Utah. And so Friday nights for the high schools, right? We want next Saturday to be for it's a celebration of the state of football for our state of Utah for football. We're playing Snow College. There's a lot of UX Badgers out there. A lot of you guys that went to Salt Community College, you got a team now, right? We're the Islanders, right? So we'd love to have the families out there. We'd love to have just fans of the game, but we need your support, right? We got a potpourri of kids. We got kids who are engineers and doctors that want to be engineers, doctors. Got kids going to BYU. We got kids that are just out of a correctional facility. We have so many different. We have kids that are working construction. So we need your support. We're trying to help these boys turn into men, and we're trying to also help them. Some of these guys elevate to the next level. I'll tell you what, we got 2 corners right now. Okay, we got Zemiah Vaughn's younger brother.
Okay,
he's playing both ways for us. All right, and he looks pretty dang good. I tell you what, he looks pretty dang good. Then we got Armand Bean at the other corner. He was at Utah last year, and he used to be at Mississippi State. We got some guys. We got a guy named DeAndre who was at Utah State at receiver. Okay, we got a running back, Polanco. I think he's the best running back in the state.
Wow,
and he runs about a 4.3. So we got some juice. All right, we're gonna. It's gonna be a fun show. Now we're still building, right? But I think we got something to sell. We got something to see that families will like. I think it'd be good for kids to come watch. And again, we're trying to change lives.
I'm curious. I don't think this is. Where did the name Utah Islanders come from?
I can't tell you. I just know that it fits.
I know you were living in Hawaii for a minute. I
was.
Read you were with my guy Chris Kamrani.
Yes.
I did that great article. I don't know if you like Chris or just.
I love Chris.
Okay, great.
Chris is an honest man, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'll tell you, and he's fearless. I was out there and I pushed him a little bit. We did some crazy stuff in Hawaii. Okay.
What'd you do?
We hunted pigs.
Okay.
And he wore sandals.
That's
like,
the Chris I know. That's the Chris I know.
Nah, I'm good with these. He's got these Jesus slippers on, right? I was like, all right, dude. And then we went out and did some, stuff on the water, and we met some interesting people, and he was fearless. But yeah, the Islanders, I think, comes from the rich Polynesian culture that has blessed our state. I would say it's been a huge blessing to the state. We're thankful to the Polynesian people that have come here and given us some culture. So we're looking to give back, and we want to give them some shine. And we got a guy, Sergio Mamone, right? He's helping us out. He's from the Big Island. He's running a fight camp. He's got his 2 boys, Ricky Mamone, and they're part of the deal. So we have a community that we're trying to build. We're trying to build a bridge with the Hawaiian Islands and the Polynesian Islands in the state of Utah, where it's just natural. Utah is a Polynesian state, I would say.
Yeah, and I think you definitely see that on the football field, both probably with the Islanders and obviously with the University of Utah. Let's get into that a little bit. And I'm curious, we had this decision come down with the Michigan football program today where they got fined like $20 million. We're talking about, college as a professional sport a little bit now with NIL funding and guys getting paid to play and everything else. You've seen this evolve over the last few years. I know, you had the situation in Colorado and the Saudi and everything else. Like, how does this continue to evolve over the next few years? Do you have like any insight, or it is just so different than it was 5-10 years? It's evolved so much.
I'm going to quote Mike Krzyzewski. The NCAA is good at running championships. I'll give them their due on that. Okay, they are. They're fantastic at running championships. Now, that's about it. All right, let's just stop the bullet. But I will say this: they were right about the Michigan thing. Okay, these guys were doing advanced scouting. That's not allowed. We weren't doing advanced scouting. Yeah. So that's an advantage they took. Now, whether or not it was they found a loophole or something, whatever. But I spoke with Connor Stallions. Okay, I've been on the phone with him. Very smart guy, interesting guy. When I had my Saudi stuff, he had his Michigan stuff. We had a nice long hour conversation. I would say that the whole thing, right, I just want to weigh in on the Michigan thing. I think it was a big FU from Jim Harbaugh. Okay, I think he played it straight most of the time, and he did push the envelope at times, like when he took the camps down south or when he took his teams to Europe. I was a huge fan of those moves, and I think a lot of us were that were on the West Coast because it was a big FU to the SEC. FU guys, I'm coming down here with my crew, and I'm going to take your players. And then they cartelled up against him and made it illegal, Saban and the boys, because they got scurred. So I at the same time, it was not the right thing to do. At the same time, whatever, it happened, and they still got the championship, right?
Right. And then, ultimately Harbaugh did leave at the right time, although now he can't coach in college football until 2038.
He doesn't care, man.
I can't imagine
Jim recruited me out of high school. He was at USD.
Really?
Oh, he used to go to my games, dude. His first gig was at USD.
What was that? Was that wild for you as a football player?
I wanted to go there after my mission. I was signed with Tech, and I kind of knew Leach wasn't going to be there for long, so I reached out, and Stanford had Lance Anderson, who's at Dixie State, Utah Tech. he was recruiting me, and he said, "Son, we just can't waste one of our waivers on a white linebacker, okay, at Stanford. We just can't." And they were honest with me. Andy Boo was there. Andy Boo went to high school at Orange Glen where my dad went. So there was a lot of connection there. Jim had known me when he was at USD, and I wanted to go there in the worst way. I didn't take enough classes, but the point being, Jim was always his dad is a heck of a coach, dude. I mean, his dad was a national champion. His brother is obviously a Super Bowl champ. Right. And so he had the lineage, and he knew, the advice I'm sure he got from his dad and not only that, he worked for Al Davis. All right, Jim liked working for Al Davis, right? And so that I could see a little bit of Al and his dad. No, that's all kind of coming out in Jim. And Jim, I don't know Jim. I'm weighing in as a casual fan here, as someone who's been somewhat, had a few run-ins with him. Yeah. I just think he didn't care at the end. Okay, the NCAA and the cartel, I called the SEC, because for 10 years, man, they ran. You know what they were doing?
College football, yeah.
And they were paying kids, right? They had bagmen. Right? Gosh dang it, I was down there. I know they had bagmen, okay? And so when you have to fight that, right, when you're trying to do the right thing, and these guys are squeezing you on your camps down south, like, dude, these guys are handing out bags, bro. Right. And they're squeezing me for having a camp? Really? Watch this. And I think that's kind of what happened.
And it's such a weird situation because, what used to be illegal is now legal. But now you've got, like, the House settlement coming in, and then Donald Trump has made an executive order to some degree on which doesn't seem to be making an impact, doesn't seem to have like any kind of.
Well, he's got other fish to fry right now. I think he's going to get to that, okay? But don't worry, he'll get to it. And come November, it's not football season yet. True. This is a guy who loves football. He's on record. He loves it. He owned a team. He tried to own an NFL team.
Tried to own the league.
He's still got Herschel Walker, making comments for him. This guy is a football guy, right? He's from New York. I lived in Jersey. I've been to his course out there in Bedminster. I was on the Jets. He used to have us over at his course. We used to have events over there. So this is very, very much a football guy. Don't get that twisted. Whoever's listening, this is a very much football guy. He's going to want credit for whatever, and rightfully so if he gets it done. He's going to want credit for fixing college football. I just know it, dude. I would bet a lot of money on it that he's going to weigh in, and he's going to squeeze whoever he needs to squeeze to make sure something gets done.
What does fixing college football look like?
You got to have salary cap, okay, and you got to have 2 leagues.
Even
2 leagues and a salary cap, I would say that, okay? And if you can't pay, you don't play. That's what happened to Oregon State and Washington State. They don't have good TV markets. They don't have the alumni. And and I shot called that, by the way. You can check that out last November. Whatever happened, I'm just saying that wasn't that hard to see, though, but it's not that hard to see. I'm not saying it was a genius thing. It's just not that hard to see when you go there and you stay in Corvallis. They don't have enough room. We couldn't stay there. There's not a hotel, okay? Wazoo, we stayed in Moscow, Idaho. So this is a Utah State type of community. They're not ready for this. And I know that's unfortunate, but that's what it's going to be. They're going to say to some of these places, you either can pay this or you can't, because they're going to have a salary floor too. And I think it's because look at the SEC. They're struggling a little bit, okay? Because why would you want to go live in Tuscaloosa and fly into Birmingham? They're not taking kids out of here anymore. You're not getting kids out of here, dude.
Well, and if everyone's on the same, it used to be that you would go to a program, at least from my point of view, you go to a program that could prepare you for the NFL, right? If you were a 5-star prospect.
Yeah.
Now you're going for a team that can prepare you for the NFL, sure, but also get you your money while you're still a healthy and active football player, and play at the brightest lights.
Well, I just had a conversation with my daughter today. Her name's Nellie. She's in San Diego, going to San Pasqual High School, and she's a world-class basketball player. I'll come out and say it. She is. She's really, really good for her age. She went to the BYU camp as a 7th grader and lit up the high school camp, the elite camp. She's good, okay? So I wanted her to reclass. I wanted her to go homeschool this year because I'm like, dude, you got an April birthday. Let's hold you back a year. Okay. Now, girls is a little bit different. The body's right. It doesn't really matter as much as as it maybe for boys. And but those conversations are being had, and I probably wouldn't have had that 10 years ago. Right? I wouldn't have worried about it. But now it's different. It's like, well, Nellie, if you get another year, it's like, we're talking maybe, and she's a 3-sport athlete. We're talking, this is going to set you up for life. And regardless of what happens after, this is going to set you up for life, so you can just do what you want.
Even in the women's basketball side, there's that much money.
Oh, dude, it's more money in some cases, right? Look at Caitlin Clark.
Sure.
She got an $8 million shoe deal coming out of college, dude. She's and women. I was telling someone there, women in football. That's another thing. Flag football, you watch. Okay, what happens? Right, it's going to be in the Olympics right next.
Right, true.
And when that happens, just like when we went to Barcelona with that NBA, with that dream team, right? Speaking of Stockton, he was talking about it's the greatest team he's ever seen. But women in sports, that's an untapped market. Look at how many guys are buying women's sport. Tom Brady owns 2 of them, I think, women's sports teams because, dude, they're over half the population, and now they're interested in sports. And I say that now. I mean, it's becoming in vogue, and it's hip to be good at sports.
And I think you're seeing men watch women's sports too.
Yeah,
Caitlin
absolutely.
Clark and
Well, the product's better because more people are involved, right? Before it was kind of a 10% thing, right? Where it was some good players in there. I mean, I don't want to give disrespect to that, but it just wasn't being played on a macro level at the youth level.
And it takes a few generations for like the Title IX stuff to kind of kick in and make a interesting product to watch.
But isn't it ironic they're going to reverse that? They're going backwards on that. And you know what? It may be warranted because women's sports, they can stand on their own 2 feet now for the most part. They're
Some of them can.
They're getting to that point where they're selling out arenas in basketball, right? When I was in college, you find more at East High School basketball boys game than you would the youth women's basketball game.
Oh, I absolutely believe that. And I worry a little bit about the non-revenue sports, right? Like in this world where, if you're no longer tying the revenues from football and basketball, and especially on the women's side, and you don't have to have the 1-to-1 women's sports to men's sports anymore, do we see, women's tennis or whatever it is go away that doesn't have?
I just think it's going to blow up, dude. I lived in Europe. Okay, I talked about that before. In Europe, they're ahead of us. Obviously, they built America, so they're always going to be a little farther ahead in some cases. Mm-hmm. But I know they got some other issues. But I'm just saying, in general, in sports-wise, they have the club system down.
The academies
they got
incredible.
It down, dude.
Yeah.
And people, I watched, Candace Parker today on a video talk about her time in Russia playing basketball. She's like, dude, I went over there. I was flying private jets. I had chefs, black diamonds. They would give me Rolexes. It's like I come to the WNBA, they're paying me $40,000 a year, and I'm riding a bus or flying coach. And so we're scaling now where the WNBA just turned down a collective bargaining agreement today.
Yeah.
Of $250,000 minimum salary, minimum $1 million max salary. They said no, it's not enough.
And that's 4 times what they were making in the previous CBA.
Yep.
But I kind of agree with the Players Association on that, where I see more of an upside for them.
What if they don't play? Right? They could always just not play.
Yeah.
So they have a tremendous amount of power, dude. And they're gonna, and so it's growing, right? They're still not profitable necessarily yet, but it's scaling. Okay, it's scaling tremendously. I was telling my daughter today, I said, you have to realize you're now competing against the entire world, and that wasn't the case 20 years ago. You know what I'm talking about? It just wasn't. Women weren't playing basketball in the United States. They definitely weren't playing it around the world. But now, with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and this whole thing, it's just exploded. It's crazy.
Do you think we see football have that? Like, so I was in Ireland last week, right? We were talking about that. In Galway, they're hosting the Kansas State-Iowa State game, right? And there's this huge banner, like, in their most historic center, town center, of Kansas State versus Iowa State. And all of a sudden, we're seeing a college football game being played over there. We haven't seen as much of the international and maybe just European influence on college football that we've seen in the NBA, we've seen in soccer, certainly the WNBA. Do you think we start seeing that more with football, or maybe not?
It's going to be hard, okay? It's expensive to play football. It's like hockey. Okay? Hockey and football are expensive, man, and they hurt, right? And there's head injuries. So I don't know about that one in Europe, okay? Europe is very much a soccer place, and they like basketball. Okay? People aren't talking about that enough, especially in France and some of these other places. They love basketball, dude.
I mean, they've changed the game, right? Like the last 5 MVPs are international.
Yeah, there you go. And so I don't know about that. Football, you're still going to have some guys, but I don't think it's going to be as organized because they got soccer, dude. And soccer is just, soccer's taken over America in some way. Football, if you go look at youth soccer and youth football, the numbers are a little disproportionate there. Even though the NIL is huge, I think they might see a swing back. But the last thing I'll say about that is that Europe has been ahead of the game in that regard. And so we look at Europe as the model. From the Messi went over to Real or to Marcelin, 10? He's 10 years old. They grabbed him out of
out of right.
Luka Doncic is playing pro basketball for Barcelona at 14. Yeah. And so is that where we're headed?
And earlier, right? Like I talked to Lowry Markkinen about this, right? Like he started playing in kind of a pro academy at the age of 9, right?
I seen it. They offer. Okay, so when I was in Lulio, I was there 9 months. It's the same latitude as Fairbanks, Alaska. Fantastic. I was playing there 3 days a week, and I can't shoot, okay, but I can defend, and I know where to go.
You're an athlete,
my dad played college basketball. My brother led the nation in 3-point shooting at Division II. I'm from a basketball family. As a matter of fact, I had an opportunity to walk on with Tommy Connors and what's his name at Utah. Who was the head coach? Tommy.
Skoviak?
Oh yeah, dude. They were really bad the first year there.
Yeah,
okay?
they were.
And so they needed a roster. Jim Boylan left, and the whole roster just took off. And so, not to get too far, but I had an opportunity to walk on there, and the coach would said no. But that's how bad it was. Getting to the point here, they offered me a spot. They said, "Why don't you join our Division II team, our developmental team? It's our 21 and under team." And they had 4 teams. This is a small little town in Sweden you've never heard of. Okay, they had a program, and they were picking kids. They were finding kids locally. They bring in a guy or two from out of the country, but that's where this thing's headed, and that's why with the Islanders, right? We want to be in that mix, okay? We're not going to be Utah or BYU, but we want to be that maybe the third team.
Well, and then, you have the opportunity to then put players in good situations and have alumni you can be proud of your program,
Absolutely. And at the same time, if everything's localized, right now you're real efficient, okay? Because you don't have a minor league team you got to get on a plane to. You get in a car, you can take the tracks. You can take a scooter to where we're at. And so it becomes something different where there's so many guys at Utah right now. And I say so many, I would bet there's 10 guys that if I say, here, how about this? You still go to school at Utah, you play for us. Go back after the season. If that was an actual option, the coaching staff would be like, yeah, do it. Quarterback, for example, go get reps down there, right? Go play 6 games. And if it gets organized enough, right, we can run the same stuff that they want to run.
Yeah.
And now we have a real program, right, where it's the credits transfer. It's all Utah. And so that's where we're headed. I've already seen this. I know this is what it needs to be because it's the most efficient way.
One more promo for the game coming up next week.
This is August 23rd, next Saturday, all right? Check us out at Utah Islanders on socials, UtahIslanders.com. We're playing Snow College, right? We're the only game in town outside of Ute Conference football. We need your support, right? This is not a money grab. We're trying to cover expenses here. And not only that, we have a product to show, dude. Yeah. We have some players. I'm telling you, we got some guys, and we're local. We're 95% local. And obviously, Snow College has a lot of good players. I mean, they got guys who are going to be playing in the NFL in Snow, and we might have a couple. So come check us out. If anything, it's a fun time for the family, right? Tickets as low as $5. Check us out at UtahIslanders.com, UtahIslanders.com, and at Utah Islanders.
Love it. Trevor, thanks so much for hanging out with me.
Hey, man, you're cool, dude.
Yeah, it's just been fun to talk to you.
Yeah, well, let's do it again.
Let's do it again. We got Paul from the Dish Pros, Ryan from the Dish Pros joining us. Hey, Ryan, sorry about that. How are you, man? And tell us more about what's going on.
Thanks so much. Listen, this is a great opportunity right now. I've got the best promotion I have ever seen in my 23 years of being a dish retailer, and it's so stacked. There's just a lot of cool stuff, and a lot of it pertains to sports fans. Right now, if you get set up, we'll get you the NFL Red Zone free for the next 6 months, which includes also the multi-sports pack. Plus, you'll also get Paramount Plus and Showtime free for 4 months. Now, yes, I said Paramount Plus. The Hopper system is fully set up to have all the streaming apps built into it, so you can watch whatever regular TV and switch to streaming pretty seamlessly. But you get that and get set up. Plus, you got the 2-year promotion with the prices guaranteed. We're going to throw in 3 months of reservice. Let me tell you, if you're a cable or DirecTV customer, you should be running as fast as you can. Grab your phone and call me, because this isn't just a few dollars. This is really $1,000 to $2,000 in your pocket. Because I can tell you right now, a minimum is worth $30 a month cheaper than what you're currently paying. I see a lot of times customers in the $60 to $80 a month cheaper when they make the switch. So call us up, take advantage of that. We'll throw in dinner at JCW's on top of everything. Have you installed for free as early as next day. You just got to call 424-DISH. That's 424-3474.
Thanks so much. That's Ryan from the Dish Pros telling us all about the great deals you can get from there. Let's go ahead and take a break, but on the other side, I want to talk with Porter a little bit about what Trevor just said on the radio, about his optimism about the Ute season coming up in the Big 12. I don't know that Trevor could have been more optimistic. We'll talk about whether or not it's warranted next here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Started today's show off with a little House of the Rising Sun. Now we're going into Beast of Burden. Loves some of the good music today. Some bad music. No, it's all been pretty good.
What are you saying about it's 5 o'clock somewhere? Is that your
Can be played at 5 o'clock. Can be played at 4 o'clock. Can be played at 3 o'clock. Cannot be played at 3:48.
It's always 5 o'clock somewhere, Andy.
That's not how time zones work.
But yeah, Rolling Stones, the Animals. This is a little crazy. Eric Burdon and the Rolling Stones have released music in the last calendar year.
Oh, well. Was not aware.
The Stones album I like, by the way. You should listen to it.
Okay.
It's a little slower.
It
It's not real rocky, but I like it. And then, the Animals. I mentioned it earlier. I think that's one of the best songs ever, but I think they're also maybe like one of the more underrated bands ever.
I think that's true.
They're a huge part of like the British invasion type deal, that timing. And as far as like the production side, they were being a little experimental and doing some things before some of the other bands that eventually became really famous and popular for it. I don't think they ever really reached, now they're popular. We're still playing their music on the radio, but they never really reached the stratosphere that I think they should have with the music they had.
Yeah, they were popular at that time for like a brief period. And then,
Right.
the Beatles took over, right?
They were
and just Beatlemania was everything.
They were almost like a modern version of a one-hit wonder that I think, I don't know, some of our generation really liked that song and others and have kind of brought them along since then. But yeah, just throwing that out there. Underrated, very underrated,
Good
the Animals.
karaoke song as well, House of the Rising Sun.
Ooh, I'll have to try that one.
The drive at 5 on the drive with Spence Checketts. I'm not Spence Checketts. I'm Andy Larson. This is Porter Larson talking to you, the Larson and Larson team.
Yo.
I thought Trevor was great. It was great. I hadn't talked to Trevor. It's not a jazz player. But have heard good things from like Chris Camerani and Jason Patacchio, our youth beat writer at the Salt Lake Tribune. But it was really just kind of interesting. That conversation went all over the place, as it sometimes does with Trevor.
I was really excited to hear Trevor interviewed by a journalist, not like a radio guy, right? We have different conversations. We have different relationships with Trevor. Sure. That was fun to hear, like, follow-ups, right? And, like, you're looking for details about this league that maybe Spence and I already know or won't ask, and that was interesting to me.
Well, and, like, if I'm honest, if I'm interviewing him as a journalist, I'm more interested in like what happened at the end of Colorado and the right.
There are questions you would have asked
stuff,
for
right?
sure.
Like, but I thought that we had him on the show today to talk mostly Utah football and to get an understanding of the next generation of football prospects, if you will, and how that environment has changed so much and what that means for Utes fans who are listening, right? So I wanted to kind of get what he knows about that world out to our audience.
And it's so changing and so evolving that getting someone who's in it, right? Not someone who's reporting on it, or because it's delayed. Everything you get, if you're reading it in a newspaper, if you're reading an article, you're a month behind. And in the college football world, there's a court case, there's the drop of a gavel can change something in the college football world one day, right? So getting a little bit from Trevor, who's on the phone during the commercial break, who's talking to investors, who's talking to players, who's talking to coaches. It's interesting how the game has changed. And now a guy who is running a team for what would be a community college is also running like a business, which is a very new thing in this landscape.
And it's also interesting. I think this is I think we've seen this once or twice, but I think we're going to see more of this, is guys who take kind of essential redshirt seasons if the transfer portal doesn't work out at some of these programs, and because they maintain their eligibility
right
for the same number of years that they had. So, if rather than sit on the bench somewhere and not play somewhere and use your eligibility because you played 4 games as a special teams guy or whatever, play every snap at one of these programs, develop your game, develop, frankly, your grades or whatever it is that your home situation that may need to change, and then come into college football ready to make an impact as, and maybe even get to the NFL or whatever it is, right? Like, I think that's going to be pretty common certainly not for every player, but some of these edge cases where we saw just kind of drop out of the public eye.
Yeah.
That could kind of come back into the public eye as a result of programs like these.
Obviously, programs like these are going to help, right? Kids struggling with their grades, maybe kids struggling legally or in a house that isn't affording college at the moment, right? That's where your eye always goes to in these situations. But as you mentioned, this can also help what I think is a growing number of college athletes, which are kids who were either promised NIL or because of the expanded scholarships now in Division I, you get offered a spot, you go and, hey, I'm a Ute, I'm a Trojan, I'm playing Division I football, and I'm, that's cool. A lot of those kids, Andy, they get to campus and they realize, oh, there's 105 kids on this roster, and I might be number 105. And yeah, I'm getting my school paid for. I'm getting a Dodge Ram lease for the next couple of years. I'm getting free food at all these places, right? But I might not play football for the next 4 years. Where can I go get reps? Where can I go get reps that's not in the middle of, as Trevor said, and listen, I love Snow College. I spent a little bit of time in Ephraim. It's not in Ephraim. It's not in the middle of New Mexico. It's not in South Dakota, literally at a minefield, South Dakota School of Mines. Shout out to those guys. This is something where it can help.
You're in the backyard.
Yeah, it can help a different type of college football player. And those are the guys who we may know their names because they're 2-3 on the depth chart at the University of Utah, but some of those guys are going to stay at that position. They might have a chance to play at a school like this. They might have a chance to play, not only play, but play in Salt Lake.
Do you know the name Darren Jones?
Yes.
Darren
6'9" wide receiver.
Yes. 6'9" wide receiver, 4-star recruit who went to the University of Utah, right? Or committed to the University of Utah.
Yeah.
And I was doing a research on all the 4-star recruits that the U and BYU have brought in over the last, I think it's 18 years, the 24/7 sports era, if you will, of actually, the star rankings of these guys on that website. And, played with Jaden Daniels at Cajun High School, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, incredible, and was part of the reason why Jaden Daniels was so good is because he had a 6'9" guy who could move and do what Darren Jones could do. Didn't have the grades, didn't have the house situation to be able to play at the University of Utah. Grew up in kind of a sketchy part of California, of LA. Because he wasn't eligible to play at the U, first tried the Snow College route. That didn't work out. Then went back to LA, ELAC, East LA Community College, I believe it is. And then kind of bounced out. He's now playing basketball, believe it or not.
Right.
I think he played, Southern Nevada, Mayville State. And then at Mayville, now he's a 2-sport athlete. He's playing football again at whatever age it is now. I think it's been 7, 8, 9 years since he was recruited originally as a high school prospect. Being 6'8" is nice to play multiple sports. But, to me, that's the kind of guy that, Trevor and the Utah Islanders can really help. And then ultimately, rather than kind of bouncing out and playing D3 football, maybe then he's playing University of Utah football as a junior and senior and actually helping this team that, could use a 4-star wide receiver recruit.
And you're dead on what the hope is for situations like that. Because, he went down to Snow, he went down to Ephraim for this reason. He wanted to go get his grades in order, get his situation figured out, and then he was headed back to Salt Lake to play football. That was always the plan. Doesn't always, go according to plan. So having situations like that, or having programs like this that can help in that regard, and every program says it, but I know Trevor, I know the stuff he's working on to have things in place for non-football stuff, right? Show you care for the kids that may not have a NFL career, probably don't have an NFL career on the horizon. Setting them up with guys that can get them jobs or help them with their credits or help them with their school schedule. This is something that doesn't happen at every place, especially the non-college prep, semi-pro. Some of those programs are, run by people we don't necessarily know what their origins are. We saw a fake school a few years ago,
Bishop
right?
Sycamore?
A guy who was literally just conning people out of money while going out and getting these kids ads and getting these kids NIL deals and getting them on ESPN. Now, this was high school, but these were the same type of players, 20, 22, 23-year-olds, that instead of scamming people and playing against high schoolers, well, they could have been playing for a team like the Islanders or another feeder program.
And then, for a guy like Darren Jones to just be the people most invested in his success was the University of Utah, right? But it is harder to do that when you are a couple of hours drive away, or you are in LA, or and if you are actually in Salt Lake County or in Utah, like, it just is so much easier to have a continuity of program that then, hey, yeah, eventually Darren Jones maybe not be ready your freshman, sophomore year, whatever, but you're still 6'8". We still want you to develop in terms of football, and then junior, senior year, yeah, maybe you can hit the football field and really, really help us.
We have coaches that are similar, right? We have coaches that played in these systems. So you're running the same playbooks. You're, I'm sure, doing similar things in the training, in the workout room. There's a lot of things in football where parallels really help, and routine really helps. And I think it's an interesting one. Now, that being said, University of Utah is still going to go look at Snow College. They're still going to go look in Logan. They're still going to go look at all these small schools around. Even if there is an established relationship, they're going to try to get players from other small schools as well, because ultimately it's just about getting talent in the room.
Relatively quickly, because we have to get to Kevin Reynolds, the BYU's beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune, in our next segment. But want to ask, Trevor was extremely optimistic about the U's football program next year. I thought he is fair to be optimistic. Maybe I'm less optimistic than that, just kind of as a realist cynic in general. Some of the things he said, like, I don't know that Utah's defense really whooped Colorado's offense last year. That's, I think, saying a lot based on how that game ended up going. But, like, they played anyway. I think ultimately, I do kind of see what he's saying in terms of this has the potential to be a coalescing year for the University of Utah to come together where, hey, the defense still looks like it's going to be at a similar level to last year. And then you have fixed this one Achilles heel that you had last year, which was just the quarterback position.
I am, like you, I think a little bit of a realist, a cynic in some forms. I am a show it to me guy, right? I'm not going to tell you Utes are going to go 11-1 until maybe I see them go 4-1 or 5-1, right? 5-0 preferably. However, I do think there is warranted optimism for this team just based on trends. Number one, which is the trend that Utah continues to just be really solid defensively, and there's no real reason to believe they're going to be a bottom half of the country defensively in 2025. In fact, you probably almost rubber stamp it that they'll be top 40, maybe top 30. If you combine that with what I think in health, chemistry, off the field stuff, all of that could get in the way here. But if everything goes according to plan, I really do think that Devin Dampier and this team, they improve Utah by 5, 6, 7 points per game. Now, optimism is on a scale. Do I think they're going to blow the doors? I think Trevor said we're going to run through everybody if our offensive line stays healthy. Do I think that? No. I think there are going to be games that Utah has to squeak out. There are going to be games that Utah will lose this year. That being said, I do think that you improve by 5, 6, 7 points. It's more about the context of the Big 12 and your opponents and the fact that there's an expanded playoff. That's where my optimism comes from. The fact that you can go 9-3 and still maybe be a playoff team with a Big 12 championship opportunity.
That's a good point. And, obviously we've seen the Utes do that in the final year of the Pac-12.
Right.
What if besides health, because that's the easy and cop-out answer, if this Utah team disappoints, how does that go? How would that have to happen?
Well, the problem is that disappointing for this team is, you go back a couple years ago, Utah went 8-4, right? They beat Florida. They did so with Bryson Barnes as your quarterback, right? And you won 8 games, and that was disappointing.
Yes.
So the problem that with the question you asked is that because of Kyle Whittingham, the expectations for Utah have gotten to a point where if you don't win 8, 9, 10 games, you have a disappointing season. So that being said, I think there is a chemistry that is required to like really say Sugar Bowl year 2004. Those are things that don't happen over the course of an offseason. Those are things that happen over the course of 2-3 off seasons where Eric Weddle and these guys were able to, as you said, kind of coalesce, really be on the same page. Getting that all together with a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback, bunch of new guys in the skill positions, and now a head coach, officially a head coach in waiting. If things aren't great week 1, 2, and 3, I think you could see chemistry start to become a real issue here. I don't think that'll happen, but if things aren't pretty, if the play calling is off, if Devin Dampier is throwing interceptions, I think this team, because of how shortly they've been together, there is maybe some concern that, you don't have enough time to really find that chemistry, dial in on the same culture. And then you have situations like you had with Tavion and some of his teammates. You have, guys pointing fingers. That really is the only thing outside of being healthy that I think derails this team is the fact they haven't been together long enough.
In a college football world, though, where
it's the new reality,
transfers are happening, and what is it, 30-40% of players are in the transfer portal every year?
Well, and Utah has 42% of their roster is people who have never played at this school.
That has to be a skill that you have. Like that is the skill, right? Like if you cannot coalesce a team, and we keep using a fancy word here, but whatever. If you cannot coalesce a team together, get chemistry on the right page in one offseason, not multiple off seasons, one off season, then you will not be very good at college football on the modern level, right? Like that's just something that Kyle Whittingham will have to do well, and ultimately down the road, Morgan Scalley will have to do well to be successful. Because you will have to rely on transfers at least a big minority of your positions every year, every single year.
It is the new reality of college football, and there's no escaping it. The one thing is that I think there's still a lane where when everyone's doing that, if you kind of are able to really dial into your development and what you've done well for 25 years, you can find those diamonds in the rough still, right? So there's a balance where there are a lot of teams that are diving all into this transfer thing, and rightfully so, you have to. But I've seen them spend in back-to-back off seasons now way more money than any school locally has. Nothing to show for it, because you have to be able to combine those recruits with a good scouting department, knowing that, just because they have a 5-star by their name, is that what we want in this locker room? That's where I think Utah can kind of gain some ground, because Morgan Scalley's been so good at finding basketball players who they aren't big NIL targets, yet they're, say a Julian Blackman, who he offered a scholarship while he saw him playing basketball. Nate Orchard, the same type of situation. Those are guys who, coming into college, didn't have big NIL opportunities. They would have in year 2 or 3, but I think there's some room for Utah to still, be really good at what they historically have been good at, while also still adapting to what is a new level of college football. The good thing is they have, I think, done a fairly good job. You look at the Rose Bowl team, Cam Rising, going onto their defense. They had a bunch of transfers on that team. A little different. It's now a little more fast-paced, but they have shown the willingness and the ability to not only bring new guys in, but bring in guys that they are confident in and that fit their system.
I think it's a great point. And we shall see, because we are under 500 hours away from...
There's the math guy, Andy.
from the next Utah football game, which is crazy to say, but it is almost here. It's just 15 days away. We'll do it that way.
Yeah, 15 days, 40 minutes, and 7 seconds.
Okay. Love it. Let's go ahead and take a break. On the other side of this segment, we're going to have BYU beat writer Kevin Reynolds join us, talk about the Utes. And, obviously we've got a quarterback situation at BYU we're going to talk to him about. Also, obviously, the Isaac Wilson situation. He's talked to Isaac Wilson a lot, knows a lot about that situation, and just the state of the Big 12 right now. Kevin's one of the most knowledgeable football reporters I know. We'll have him on here next in the segment. This is The Drive with Spence Checketts. I'm not Spence Checketts. I'm Andy Larson on ESPN 792.1 FM, proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Welcome back into The Drive with Spence Checketts. I'm Andy Larson, filling in for Spence, who's out today. Porter Larson joining me as well. Can't believe you finished the final segment of the show with some country music. My least favorite. I know you enjoy it, but it's not my cup of tea.
Little Chris Ledoux for you.
I've never heard
Not
of that
familiar?
band in my life. Yeah, sorry.
Come on, man. He's a real cowboy too. He did a little rodeo.
Okay. I covered a rodeo event this summer, the Utah High School Rodeo Finals. Good times.
Where at?
Up in Heber.
In Heber right now?
Yep. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. It's back in June, I think it was. Yeah, I went up there. My Mini Cooper did not fit in the vast sea of pickup trucks up there. But honestly, I had a great time. Rodeo would scare the living daylights out of me to participate in. Like, I saw a kid just get trampled on, this poor girl, but there's a toughness that you respect out of those athletes. So anyway, it was a good time.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I grew up in that area, so a lot of those folks I knew. I grew up a little bit roping and riding. I retired that like right before my freshman year, so no Utah high school rodeoing, but still frequent those areas and the rodeo grounds there in Heber.
Real quick, before we end the show, we would be remiss if we didn't do any Jazz talk. We've done a lot of Utah football talk, and rightfully so, as we're 15 days away from opening the first game against UCLA. The Jazz season released their schedule yesterday. The NBA schedule is pretty samey every year because you play the same teams and you know what you're going to get. And not too many surprises, only 2 national TV games on a new network. The NBA is back on NBC. So the Jazz will have 1 game on NBC and 1 game on Peacock, and that is their only nationally televised games all year long. The rest of the games are on SEG Plus and KJazz. It's a rough season, right? It's going to be rough. MGM put out their Vegas over-under odds. The other sides have as well, where they're projected to win 18 games next year. And I would probably still take the over on that. They won 17 last year, but had to sit a lot of guys in some pretty blatant tanking that Austin Ainge says they won't need to do this upcoming year because they've traded their veterans away. But the rest of the Western Conference is extremely talented, and they're all going for it other than the Jazz. So, yeah, look, it's going to be a long year. I don't know that I'm going to get a lot of excitement or interest in my Jazz coverage this year, but there are always interesting stories. And, I think the big question to begin the year is, will Lauri Markkanen stay with the Jazz the whole year, or will he be traded at the deadline? We'll certainly be covering that all year long. But it's another kind of wait-and-see year. I think the most exciting on-court element is whether or not Ace Bailey is a star, or if he needs so much seasoning that it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I think you hit on kind of the main talking points, right, and the touch points that you're going to be focusing on. 18 games to me is fair, just based on where this roster is. I hit the over, but that's more to do with not the Jazz roster, obviously. I hit the over because of Will Hardy, and I hit the over because of what I think will continue, and that is an NBA trend of teams that are not the Utah Jazz, let's say, positioning for the postseason, right? Yeah. So I think month left in the year, Jazz are going to be at 18 or so wins. There's going to be a bunch of teams that are jockeying for postseason, that are maybe tanking, that are resting players, all of the above. I think that kind of gets you over the 20-win mark.
I fully expect the Jazz, by the way, even though Austin Ainge said they won't tank at the next season. I think it comes down to March, and you're talking about 1 game on whether or not you've got good odds for AJ DeBonsa, or if we're talking the 6th, 7th best player in next year's draft. It's a big difference. Like, I think ultimately you'll see them do the same things that they have in years past and that other teams do, because it just makes too much sense not to.
You've got picks to protect. You've got things to do long term. There's just, you would like to think and hope, and I do think you're going to see Will Hardy put out competitive lineups, and lineups that are going to show you things for the future. You're going to see a lot of young talent on the floor. But yeah, man, I'm with you in pumping. I guess it's not the brakes. The brakes have already been going, but keep pumping those brakes, because this is going to be a similar year with maybe a little bit more silver linings, because you can see down the road a little bit. Whereas when you had a bunch of expiring contracts, when you were looking at a dead end at the end of the year, there's no light at the end of that tunnel. When you're seeing Ace Bailey knock down 18-footers, when you're seeing him in the isolation, you're seeing those type of things during the year, at least you can have fun, even if the wins and losses aren't coming.
Yeah, you at least have one top-tier prospect, right? And that's what the Jazz missed last year and the seasons before, because they either had bad drafts or did not lose enough games to get a good pick in those drafts. And that was what has made this rebuild take so long, and certainly we are still at the bottom of that rebuild. I think it has taken longer than Justin Zanuck and Danny Ainge would have expected when they traded Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. But there is, you're right, at least one player that I think you say that you want to build around in Ace Bailey, and we'll see if he can live up to that.
I am curious to add on to all of the touch points that you kind of have previewed what the coverage will look like this year. If Lauri Markkanen is on this roster, and if he's playing big minutes, and if he's playing well, obviously the trade value is going to come up. Obviously the trades, I guess the trade offers will come flowing in. How do the Jazz view that, right? Long term, I still think there is a disconnect between some people on staff and maybe just fans and thinking that this is a player that is going to be in uniform 2, 3, 4 years from now. I wonder how much we learn about that
possible, but I do kind of suspect Austin Ainge feels differently about it than previous Jazz management did.
Right. That's kind of what I was getting at. It seems like there's a shift there. You know, I want to know what that dynamic looks like as Lowry approaches trade deadline.
We shall see. It will be interesting, and I mean, it says a lot that we are, 2 months away from training camp. I guess 6 weeks away from training camp, and we're talking about the trade deadline as the most interesting thing about this Jazz season.
Says so.
Yeah. Look, it's going to be a down year. Nevertheless, I think we'll have a lot of good sports coverage in general in the Salt Lake Tribune, and hopefully you guys give us a chance to read that coverage. I think I'm really proud of where our sports team is right now in terms of the quality of reporters that we've got bringing good reporting and content to you on a regular basis at the Trib. That ends the drive with Spence Checketts. It's been a pleasure to get to guest host this show on this Friday.
I think you hosted
thank you so much for help.
I don't know if it was any guest hosting involved. You were leading the ship.
I thank you. I not taking Spence's job. This is a worse job than the one I have in my view. I don't want to show up.
No Wally Pip.
Every day from 2 to 6. That's a lot of work.
Fair enough.
Legit, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's a lot of fun always to talk sports. It was a lot of fun to talk to Trevor Riley in that 4 o'clock hour. Always fun to talk to Kevin, my coworker. And even to talk a little golf was great as well. So, and it's always just fun talking to you as well, Porter. So thanks for all you do for the show. Thanks for listening to us here at ESPN 700. This is Andy Larson, The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 792.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network.